Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Tribe Podcast. We're super excited to share today's episode because we're interviewed Foster. And as usual, we really got into it and we had a lot to ask and a lot to hear, and that's one of the things we love about having interviews with Foster, because it's just so many amazing stories and so much insight that you don't even have enough time to get it all in. So we really hope you guys enjoy this episode. And the idea is we really wanted to dive into like ancestral healing, transmuting, and especially since after we'd done the episode that had to do with DNA and, this year, that's a really good year for you to kind of work on that. So we wanted to get his, Foster's shamanic information and knowledge and wisdom, and he brought us that and more as usual. So enjoy, guys, absorb all you can and listen to as many times as needed, because there's a lot to hear and there's a lot to kind of jot down and practices to bring into your life and into your awareness.
What is your, I guess I would ask first, what is your perspective on our ancestral lineage and how it might affect us, or maybe it doesn't? What is your perspective on that?
I think you have to eventually transcend your ancestors. I know people will take offense at me being a shaman saying that. First, you contact only the ancestors that want to support you. You do not want to contact the ancestors that are not interested in you. So you make a circle around yourself, and you only ask for those ancestors that support your present incarnation to enter the circle. And those that do not want to support you, who have been lost in their own dogmas or their own religious beliefs, whatever, they cannot enter. So that you only have supportive ancestors. And you make an ancestral altar for a time. I did that for years. I had photographs, whatever, my great-great-grandfather, everything on the altar. And my grandmother, everybody. And I also put things on the altar that they like the food they like, the liquor they like, all that kind of stuff. And I would go to the altar and talk to them for 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. And they would come and visit. Now, ancestors, their knowledge, what they know is what they knew in life or what they've studied on the other side. But if they don't know that much, not so helpful. But the ones that are helpful, fantastic. But I did it to honor them. And then they started to support my life. You understand? And then there was a time when they said, you don't have to do this anymore. You're graduating beyond, an ancestral altar, and we have moved on the other side. And you've helped us, through this communication and through all the work that you do on earth. Because a lot of us were black sheep of our families. I was certainly the black sheep. I'm sure you two were. And
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I was the exact opposite of what they wanted, But I was completely only interested in spirit. I was interested in, the other worlds. And my family would look at me like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so fascinated by this? Because no one in our family is that interested. My father was a Catholic, and when he was dying, he said, I don't have faith. And my mother, when she died, there is a thing called the guardian of the forest, which is a giant elk. It's like a deer with a giant horns. And in the middle of Los Angeles, this deer ended up in my garden physically. And it just looked at me and said, your mother's dead. And then I got the phone call in that moment. And crystals.
Wow,
that's crazy.
And so my mother who only sent one image, and that was that she was naked swimming in Greece in the water after she died. Like, now I'm free. She didn't regret her life at all. That's what she wanted. But now she felt free. And she didn't exactly want to see my father. She wanted her freedom. And that taught me a lot about how women want freedom, how they want to be able to live their own beliefs, and how they sacrifice so much, for money and the status and comfort and wealth, like my mother did. It doesn't necessarily make her so happy, because they drugged her. Every time you had a problem, you got a drug. This pill, take this pill, all the antidepressants actually is what killed her.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh my gosh.
And she was, she got depressed. So of course, my own ancestor is my mother, but at the same time, when she died, she kind of told me, study witchcraft, Foster. I'm actually from a witch line. I'm actually a witch. And I want you to revive it. So that's what I got from that huge deer, which I've never seen again in the middle of Los Angeles, in our garden.
Is that common? Like, that doesn't sound common at all.
No, there are fences. There are all sorts of things. You can't possibly go in someone's backyard. There are all these very strong hedges, like in South America, these tall hedges. Didn't matter. Climbed down the mountain and it came to us. So I love that. There's no mountains in LA, like hills.
Yeah.
And this was for me, all my life, I always wanted to not save my mother, but elevate her. Because she was depressed, because, some days she didn't want to get out of bed. She spent a lot of her time shopping because she didn't really work, because my father worked. And, she had to stay home and, buy things and wear nice dresses and all that kind of stuff. So, and my mother had a maid, she had other people working for her. She didn't really work. And she was a very elegant woman, but I'm quite practical, so I was really very different than all of them. And I wanted to revive my mother's spirituality. So this is another thing. Your ancestors, what they don't live, if you're the black sheep of your family, you live it. You understand? You live your own spirituality, but you don't go back to try to fix what's wrong with your family. And you never go back, because if I try to fix it, I would have to go so deep into the unconscious and I would probably drown. So in other words, some families are not fixable from their cause. You have to reinvent your life and live it kind of on the highest level you can, using your full potential.
That sounds amazing.
So I learned that with my mom. And still with my mom, because I'm gay, I'm male and female in one body, I felt her. I felt emotionally connected to her, because that's a lunar male, not just a sun male at the time. Another thing with ancestors. So how to clear your ancestral memory when it's cloudy. Now I'm telling you, some people cannot clear it, Lucy. I know you would love everybody to clear it. Some people can. So they have to.
I want everybody to get rid of all the junk. Just get it out.
There is a way to do that by going in your own direction. It will come up anyway for you. So first of all, if you're a man, the shadow of your father is very important. What your father did not live in his life. If he's an alcoholic, he certainly didn't live it. He escaped from his responsibility. If he was at a dark side, sexually, and he had other women on the side and other families, this is going to affect you. Then 70% of all men whose fathers had affairs will have an affair while they're married. See what I mean? So it's very strong predilection. It pulls you. So you have to know your father's history. In other words, you have to know his shadow if you're. And because you're going to look for it anyway in your dreams and your subconscious. You're going to try to find him. And second, you have to separate. You have to know what your shadow is. What from your past lives. Most of them are from past lives. And, what shadows did you have? And you see them in your life. What are your shadows? Where you don't accept yourself, where you reject parts of yourself. The shadow is the rejected part of yourself. So like for gay people, we reject being gay because we want to fit into society. but you can't really. you know pretty young who you are. You feel it there. You try to be bisexual. You try everything. But in the end, it's not going to work. And you have to finally make the decision. Like, I've got to be happy and live my truth. For a woman, same thing. But once you separate, you know what your shadow is. You separate it from your father's shadow. This is awareness. From that comes the third thing, which is a man by 14 years old has to separate from his mother. So the first 7 years of your life, you're with both parents. From 7 to 14, you're with your mom. And then some people, it starts very early, 12, 13, 14, they have to break from their mom. A man has to start preparing himself for society.
So what is your opinion, for example, of people that are very, very attached to their mom and dad still? Do you think that's bad then?
Yes, after 14, they have to go to their father. And the father then prepares them from 14 to 21 to enter the world. That means go to college, figure out life, how to be in the world. That's what your father is supposed to prepare you for, because that's what he did. Okay, then at 21, it's your life. You're not influenced by your parents anymore. 21, you're in your heart now, and your heart is telling you what to do till you're 28. And then comes
the heart of many 21-year-olds is alcohol.
And it's free. It's very wild. Hormones.
Yeah.
It's also, a kind of liberation, though. You're liberated from your parents. You're liberated from so many things. You have, and eventually you have to learn how to make a living and have your own apartment and pay your own bills. But your parents also want you gone, by 28, definitely. So in your life, when 14, like, women ask me, should I let my son in a divorce go to his father? Because he's being, he's acting out and doesn't want to stay home. Yes. Go to the father and work it out with the father. Probably the karmic issues are with the father. Maybe they came for the father to make them a better person or make sure they don't die. Make sure
What if that relationship with the father is, like, not good, right? Like, what if their father is abusive or an alcoholic? Like, what happens in that case, right?
You have to find a mentor. You have to find a replacement for the father. That's hard too. Usually it's a teacher, somebody in sports, like a coach, somebody that becomes a father figure for you. And you're going to look for that. And boys definitely will start looking for that. And they'll find it even in a friend, whatever it begins. They'll get adopted by another family, or they spend more time with another family. If they don't have any of those avenues, not good, Lorena.
Yeah.
You've got to look for those things. You've got to make it happen. You get a job, whatever, and you find a mentor. Somebody who starts to help you to become a father figure. So for a girl, it's different. Girls are very different. In shamanism, we call it the Rainbow Lodge. A woman finds her own power within herself.
I love that.
Men go on the vision quest. Men have to go out and prove themselves and blah, blah, blah. But the woman goes into her hut and she finds it within her own dreams, within her own ancestry, within her own being. Because everything is already there inside of her. She can give life. She can birth something in her womb. And so, I'm not like other shamans. I kind of believe very strongly in menstruation. It's the power time of a woman. It's also a cleansing time.
If it's so empowering, why are women so tired?
Well, cleansing time. It's also cleansing because the blood is cleansing out a lot.
Of course.
All the time. Like the moon. You are very deeply connected to the moon. Another thing for a girl, she has to figure out her mother. I'm so sorry, but you've got to understand, even if you can't stand your mother.
I'm going to be 40. I haven't figured it out yet.
And the mother might have many secrets. Have her own fantasy life. She might have her own. But a daughter will feel it. She'll feel, maybe I didn't love your father. I settled for your father. Or maybe, she's broken because the father was with somebody else, or whatever it is. Eventually the secrets come out later in life. Part of shamanism or spirituality or magic is to reveal all the secrets so that you figure out your life. And that might be your mother's secrets and what didn't fulfill her. I have to tell you, it's wonderful to have children, but it's not the purpose of life. You know, and I've never met a woman who was satisfied with children. It's never happened. So that's the first thing you will learn from your mother is children are not enough. They're loved, they're wonderful, they love you when you're young. And when you get older, it gets very difficult. And then they love you again. But and then they're proud of you. And hopefully they've done their work, to teach you. Now, ancestral memory, of course, the most important ancestral memory I'm interested in is bloodlines. That means if you're a witch, you've got to have it in your bloodline. If you're a shaman, usually somebody has to have some gift, some spirituality many generations ago. The fact that you're even interested in doing these podcasts, interested in spirit, tells me it's somewhere in you. There's a curandera, or there's a midwife, or there's a teacher, or somebody who went into the mysteries, a priestess, someone in your bloodline. Now, when the Christians kind of took over everything and, destroyed women over a period of time, this is, I believe, because the first Christians, like Paul of Tarsus, Saul, he was gay, I'm sure, and excluded women from the church. Because the inception of any idea, the inception of a church, the first people have a huge impact on the future. And we know that the Catholic Church, for instance, can be very gay, which led to, of course, the final idea of how they abuse so many men and women, sexually. Now, it starts out, I think, at the beginning, a lot of gay people, first of all, are quite spiritual. And if they can't live their sexuality, they go into spiritual things, and then they condemn or put down anybody who lives their sexuality.
I always wondered that, because I realized that it's like gay guys are able to bring the masculine and feminine, it's like to a perfect place. And I always wondered if that was it, why they were so good at when they got into that field.
Yes. Because it's both male and female in their body. And they're on the edge of life. If you're not accepted by society, come on, you're also going to destroy everything that's trying to destroy you. Remember that. We don't just, that's why witchcraft appeals to us, or shamanism, or something in which we'll have power. Because if the society disempowers us, we're going to go somewhere else. Right?
Yeah, you have to get your power back.
And we don't want to be self-hating gays that just put down gay marriage and gay adoption and all this stuff and hate ourselves. And then destroy other gay people, like in Hollywood. People did that. That's a waste of time for me. That's called gay hating. That's when you have self-hate. A woman, when she is looking for her ancestors, that's kind of a wonderful thing, because you make an altar and you start to interact with them, and it changes you. It helps you for initiation. It gives you backup. A woman needs backup. She needs somebody to support her. Now, then comes the next step. There's many, many steps in here which are initiations for a woman. A woman's initiation is first of all, you must find that ancestor that is supportive of you, that perhaps was spiritual in the past and has the lineage. The one that's woken you up. And if you can't find it, you just feel it, because it is in you, it is active, and they wished for you. In other words, someone in your family had to have dreamt you. Somebody had wanted you. And maybe it was a group of women in your family. Like, finally, you're going to be the ones who get liberated. And a lot of women didn't feel liberated. Like, they had many lives of family, working for a man, having children, and bored out of their mind. Do you understand? It's like, this is all that there is. They go to the other side and say, that was it. That's my whole life. Birth, babies, death, eating. It wasn't, that's not enough. And work.
I wouldn't call eating a waste of time, though.
But, I'm just saying, just like an animal, which is fine, but it's not enough. We have the spark of the divine in us. We're meant for so much more. We came here to realize ourselves as divine beings. We're here to co-create life. We're here to really, work on ourselves. We come here strictly to work on ourselves, to to understand and get rid of all the dogmas. So I think that overlays of dogmas in a family are one of the not so good things. So I love faith. I love when people believe in something. That's great. But if they believe only in dogma, so the ancestors can be a mixed bag if they're involved in dogma. So I love when Africans find their ancestors, because then Africans go back to their original tribes and they go back to the original people. So there, I think the ancestral altar, for instance, in African religions and African, ways of living, even voodoo, is fantastic. You need an ancestral altar. Okay. A lot of us come from, conquistadors or whatever, or Indians, but they had a lot of dogmas and a lot of violence. So let's talk about that. When we go back into our past, the image is always that you're going down into the earth. You imagine yourself passing through the layers of the earth, and those are different time periods. So the deeper you meditate down into the earth, the more you're going through different time layers. And one of those time layers, of course, is all the past civilizations. So for me, when I go down there, and I spend a lot of time down there, I love to go all the way down to the deepest underworld I can get to. Not just the realm of the dead, which is quite lovely for me, but I kind of like the underworld. It's to get to the point where you reach the archetypes, you reach the divinities down below, and you meet them, the mythologies, what they're talking about. And then you get empowered there in your own DNA, meaning you go to the place where your DNA, is the root of. And there you enter your own DNA as a brilliant golden white light. And you step into the cocoon of your DNA. And there's all possibilities in there, and you can start to alter yourself. In Egypt, that was called Osiris. You enter Osiris in the underworld. Fantastic thing. Now, I love all the myths because it explains all these processes so well. As I was going down, you start to remember the real history of the earth. So, for instance, like Babylon was a wonderful time. The Christians have made it like the bad place. It's not a bad place. It was the time when we were the most free. Sodom and Gomorrah were cities where people could live their freedom. There were gay people. There were sexual freedoms. There were lots of knowledge freedom. And people were united in these cities. Babylonia. They were united in the sense of one language. Babylon had one language. They had superpowers in their own way because they were all united. You know how music always tries to unite the world? That's the memory of Babylon, because it did exist. And we were free, and we were talking to divinity. It was quite an amazing time. And what happened is, Yahweh comes in and says, let's confuse all the languages. Let's not let them be empowered. Let's not let them have that. Let's control them. Let's manipulate humanity. And let's create a flood, and let's wipe them all out so that we have no trace or memory of free human beings. So the Garden of Eden, the first one with Lilith, she's in a garden and she's supposed to marry Eve, as the story goes. And Lilith says, well, I don't want to be here because I realize this man is not as intelligent as me. Second, so here we have a woman who's intelligent. We know that other human beings exist too, because she compares herself. She says, I'm educated. Second, she says, what am I doing in this garden? When, Adam rejects me, I'm not enough for him. He just wants me to be servile to him. So Lilith does something quite extraordinary. She leaves the garden and she goes her own way. She doesn't care about being condemned and everybody saying, oh, you're a whore, you're this, you're a demoness, whatever. She does her own self.
I love it. She reminds me of me. Pack my bag, I'm out.
And
I love that energy.
I will honor her to the day I die. She's the Sphinx for me in Egypt. That's her face, the original Sphinx, before they try to change it to a pharaoh's face. So a lot of women don't have the connection, not just to ancestors, but to all the great women, because the Christians demonized all of them, really. You're either a saint or a demon. There's really nothing they accepted. It was too extreme for me. Then when we get into the next Garden of Eden, second Genesis, we have Adam and Eve. And Lilith now is a snake. They make her into the snake in the garden. But basically, she's giving them the fruit of knowledge. So I think they wake up and realize, where is God? God says, where's Adam and Eve? Where's Adam, God says. So it's not an omniscient God. It's Yahweh. He created the garden as a kind of fake world. And this fake world where, we don't have to know too much and, we're just kind of naked playthings for a God is a little too kinky for me. It's not really nice, okay?
Yeah.
And that's what Lilith was trying to say is, this is a total illusion. Get out.
Be careful, yeah.
And so they get out. And I think when they get out, they're in a way condemned or whatever, but they're free. They now have to create their own life. They now have to follow themselves.
So would you say that they were creating fear that you try to get your own freedom?
Exactly. So what's happening now? Pluto just is making its full transit, right? Around the whole solar system. That will end in 2023. That's the beginning of matriarchy. So we just went through 1,000 years of patriarchy. It's the end. And you feel it. It's just beginning now and you feel it. So there's a lot of, warring between, should women have rights? Should we take away abortion rights? Should we take away all their rights? Or should we mystify them or whatever? And they have to be all wrapped up and they have to be, these secretive women. Either way, we are having a liberation no matter what. You girls are part of that. And this is why I fell in love with shamanism, or I fell in love with witchcraft, and I fell in love with herbs and healing and all these things. It's liberation time. It means we have to get rid of tremendous layers of dogma from our ancestors. So how do we do that? By finding out what's the real history in the past. That is the century, because I think all religions end in the century, because they're not based on full solid ground. They're based on, how can I say this, dogmas that have been passed down. It's like mistranslating old texts. If you mistranslate it once, the next one misinterprets it, it gets worse and worse and worse. Like they mistranslated Hebrew for so long. And they put it into magic, and then, now we know more. The older texts, by the way, I talked about that Eve had a daughter, that she destroyed the first of Noah's Arks and all that kind of stuff, is really about the liberation of women and how they've been trying to do a revenge against Yahweh for a very long time. So I think it's Yahweh as a God who doesn't like women. I think he's the one who imprisons people in these kind of fake worlds. And I think we're now waking up to the fact that this whole world we're living in is a construction of Yahweh. It's to convince people to live a lie and not be empowered and not be free.
I've been feeling that. Like, I've really been feeling that. Like, I've been feeling like I want to break a wall or something.
Come out of the bubble. Come out of the Garden of Eden. Eat the fruit. That's also Macintosh computers. They purposely, Apple put in the apple.
Yeah, they eat an apple.
That's Lilith. So they're saying eat, get knowledge. That's the internet.
I love that. Yeah.
I think that everybody feels like I need to break out. But the way you feel that is you go through COVID, you get stuck in your house, and you want to break out. I want to break out of everything. There's just so much TV and Netflix I can watch because, it's all repetitious after a while. And it's all, these are demons and this is this, bad and good. And they're still full of the dogmas. They're still, even though they try to liberate you, a little bit, it's not enough. So one thing I believe in with your ancestors, when you're going far into clearing genealogical things, things will come up, meaning you call your ancestor to you. You imagine them like a circle around you, and you call them and you ask them, what is the cause of this? What happened in your life? For instance, did any of you curse yourself? That's where I would start. If one of your ancestors cursed themselves, that's what a family curse often is. I would say 90% of the time. Meaning they felt that they did something wrong. Maybe they killed the lover or they did something or, maybe they did commit suicide, whatever they did, they curse themselves in such a way that it affects all the next generations. So you get to that point where you want to kill yourself, or you want to die, or you feel that you're cursed. So it's usually an ancestor who did it to themselves. So you have to break that. You have to say, like Archangel Michael, bind these curses and cords of cosmic light and release them from my body. Or you have to understand the curse so well that you ask our ancestors to please release it for you. Because I am not that person. I don't go through the same things, and I don't want a repetition, an anniversary effect of your curse. Now, the other 10% are magical curses. Like if you live in Peru or whatever, where they're good at sending a curse, or Africa in certain areas, they still know the old ways. New Guinea, they can curse you.
Or if you go to Brazil, you'll have the black candles burning with the chicken with no head thing going on.
You throw it, on an anthill, and you're cursed by the ants eating the pork rind. Anyway, there are many ways to curse. Cursing is specifically usually to limit somebody, to bind someone. Like on a Saturday night, you bind somebody. Saturn is very much about limiting and binding. When somebody is out of control, for instance, who would I limit in this world? Well, I lived in Los Angeles, right? There are a lot of rapists. There are serial killers. And then there are a lot of people who just like to steal from the rich. Then there are a lot of people who like to break into houses. And they usually steal like something so stupid and kill the person in the house. These people, I bind them. And I do that on a Saturday night. And I also I freeze their ass. I take the photo of them, I put in my refrigerator, and, with
I
nails.
love that.
I have stuff in my
that.
freezer. Yeah, I have things in my freezer right now as we speak.
That works.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
Stop. It means to stop. Stop creating havoc and craziness in this world. So Yahweh, I believe, is the source of all that violence and havoc and insanity when people listen through their own ego instead of getting very clear messages. So how do you get clear messages?
Can I ask you a question about, like, you say you're binding on Saturdays, right? These people that, let's say, like a thief. Yeah. And I love that idea. But what's the karmic aspect from your side? Because that person's free will is, I want to steal. Like, their free will wants to steal, right?
Right. Don't affect me. You're affecting my own space. You're affecting my own town. You're affecting people who are around me. That's why I hear about it. The police tell me, somebody tells me. And then I get an image. I can get an image because people have cameras. So I get an image. I can put it in and bind them, meaning I take like red string, black string, and I put it around the photograph, or I put them between two mirrors. So all I'm really doing is take a look at yourself.
Oh, okay.
Do anything. You understand? Like if I take two mirrors and I place them, image them, and I bind it, I'm saying now you have to look at yourself. And usually everything goes wrong in their life. Because they're of chaos.
Because they have to confront themselves now.
Exactly. Look at yourself and look at what's going on around you. And that can be too much for them. Sometimes they take their own life. Sometimes they just, whatever happens. I usually like to bury them in the backyard in the West and say goodbye. Stop. Put a stop to you. And the West is stop. It will protect me. And protect my friends and protect my community and protect, So it won't work if I'm in the wrong and I don't see the whole picture and I don't see who they really are. And sometimes people lie and they give me misinformation. I have to test it. I have to see if they're accusing somebody that actually didn't do those things. Mm-hmm. That actually the person who's coming to me who wants to kill somebody or wants to kill their husband or whatever they want to do. And it has nothing to do with that person. So then usually I get a hint. My own guides, anyway, who are so strong, and they'll say, this person is lying to you. Don't you dare do a binding. Okay? Bind them. Then? And
of course.
We are 100% responsible for whatever we say, think, or do. And people have to know that. And that's what elevates us as human beings when we know that. Instead of just thinking you can do whatever you want. This Aleister Crowley thing, just do whatever you want, love under will. But in fact, there are laws, and there are certain things, and there are things that I will tolerate and won't tolerate. And that's what I found very amazing about witches. They said, I have no problem cursing you. I have no problem in binding you because you hurt my sister. You hurt my coven. You went for us. We're going to go for you. And I think that's fantastic. And they left behind books and everything, how to do that. Remember, if a witch doesn't have a coven anymore, she buries the book with herself in her grave. So people dug up graves, and that's why we have grimoires. That's why we have
that's insane.
filled with all their spells on what works. It's fantastic to me.
How did they get those spells though? Like, was it something that they just innately knew, or is it something that was passed down to them maybe?
Passed down to them. And again, here we go back to the Nephilim. So witches definitely come from the Nephilim. Anybody who has real knowledge is a descendant of Nephilim. So Nephilim were angels that interacted with humanity and crossbred. In other words, they created giants, they created, titans and all these kind of things. But they also were the ones who wanted to help the children here, the children of the sun, which is us, the Elohim. And how do they do that? By giving us knowledge. So they started to channel to us. They started to speak to us. They started to have mediums. You understand? Clairvoyance is how to speak with divinity. That's the real idea, how to clear yourself to speak to divinity. So that's what they did. And I think what happened in that incredible clairvoyance and what they came to understand that's passed down to us now is, I don't know, ritual work, rituals and lighting, even before candles and reciting things and prayers and, even ways how to eat and how to combine foods. Everything was taught to them. And I think that was the great knowledge. Talismans, everything that was given to us. Just a revelation of how things work and how to be a creator yourself. How to use language, And those people advanced tremendously, and the other half of the world didn't advance. The ones who couldn't be clairvoyant, that were too dogmatic already, too traumatized by the fact that we had so much free will here that people started to kill each other. And when the first time, it's a fantastic thing to go back in your incarnations to the first moment when you experience death, someone being killed. You see, so when I go into past lives, I also go into your ancestry, because some of your ancestors are really your past lives. Who are you? That's also your ancestry. I like the idea of a spiral staircase, and you walk down the staircase and you get to a platform, and that's one life. You go further down the staircase, another life. So the future lives are the staircase going up, your past lives are the staircase going down. So you can also visit your future lives, and you can see the future. See, and you train.
I like that.
So, I nail it in the future.
I hope so.
I think that we are now in the final, would I say war, the final confrontation between those that follow Yahweh or follow false gods, who are so dogmatic, who believe this is the apocalypse, and those that have come here saying, yes, it's the apocalypse, because actually you're all in delusion. You're all facing a huge illusion, and you're manipulated by a false god. So we want an Armageddon, in that we want everything to fall apart to something new that is more natural, that is connected to the green world before we destroy the world. So I've always told you the ecological catastrophe is going to happen anyway. And the sun is also changing, and all this underneath the paw of the Sphinx is a room that has all the information for what humanity has to do to counterbalance what's happening with the sun and to change the weather. Because it happened before, 28,000 years ago. And 28,000 years ago, there was a civilization here, and they left records. And we have to decipher them. You have to go through the codes, everything. But then you find the cipher, and you realize what they're saying, and then you build what you have to build to save humanity. So our ancestors also come back that way. They left for us tremendous amount of books, even mechanical things. Atlantis left a lot of things in caves. Nothing is lost.
But just like the dogma, that's been kept at a distance, so it's really hard for us to access that, or people that are starting to wake up to even accept that that's there.
So this is the Akashic records for you. The libraries physically exist. Remember that the Alexandrian libraries, which were copies of all the ancient books, they were just copies, meaning the original books still exist even if they burn down the library. And those original books exist now in underground libraries all over the world that we don't have access to until we are of a certain evolution, until we're ready to face ourselves and the truth. But by you going to the Akashic records, by you going down into the earth and looking, by you, asking, the more you ask, the more you're going to get results from a deity or from a daemon or from an angel or whoever you want to go to. They're going to start, kind of taking you to different places where you get access to libraries, Akashic libraries, whatever you want to call it. But these libraries you can go to in an astral form and start to realize who you are and where you come from. So that's why I say like Babylon, Sodom and Gomorrah were kind of wonderful places that the Christians say, oh, it's bad. No, it was a time of freedom, of unification. And there's just they put such a stereotype on women. Women have to be stopped because they're clairvoyant, because they have a predilection to speaking directly to divinity. And there's the mother goddess, and, they have gifts and they can heal and all these things, and we have to stop them. That's an amazing thing to me, to actually do that over a period of 1,000 to 2,000 years. And it's been going on for a long time. Oh, they're just witches. They're bad. They're this. It's not like that. You know that a real coven is the weaving. A woman will teach you, a wise woman will teach you how to weave the different elements together. And that you're weaving by being supported by a coven having your back, by believing in you and bringing you through rituals until you're able to do the rituals yourself and command forces and feel, confident in yourself. And then to even leave the coven and leave the dogma of the coven, they all have their own dogmas, but take with you a lineage, like you take with you the ancestors that believed in this. And they support you in your next endeavor to evolve the coven. That to me is fantastic, as long as they have the seed of an original idea. Some Wicca to me, is okay. I don't know that they get to the original seed, but they're trying to get to the shamanic seed, the essence of their ancestors. Witchcraft, usually, you have witches with 36 ancestors, 36 generations of ancestors with their books, the original books. So you have knowledge. Do I think some witches went rogue and went very bad? Of course, because they were being murdered. So I think to help their own kind, they went as rogue as they could possibly go. For good reason. And they cursed.
Sad.
And a lot of them came back now who, are doing their revenge. Absolutely. I meet witches who are doing their revenge.
Really?
Yeah, of course, against all the people who for so many centuries have been attacking their family. Now they finally get, and a lot of people who used to attack witches have finally woken up. And now they're interested. They're scared, but they're interested. And as soon as they get closer and closer to it, a lot of dogmatic bells go off in them, dogmas, like, oh, I'm dealing with the devil. Oh, this must be. So the devil is a human construction. It is actually Yahweh. So what I'm trying to say to you, to me, entire Catholic Church and most of the main three religions are worshiping the wrong God. They're worshiping the devil.
That's huge.
And then, therefore, they've created a giant phantom that they're following.
We've done readings for people that find it so hard to connect to, or their own Akashic records, or whatever it is they're connecting to, because their religion taught them that's a bad thing to do, right?
So the creator, El Elyon, Tekashla, Watatanka, there's so many names, is the no thing. It's something wonderful. It's something different, something benevolent, something that doesn't interfere. It's set it all up for you to know their mind, the cosmic mind of the creator and the goddess, which is an extraordinary thing. So That's why you're really alive, is to break through all of this. And, like many games and many kind of sleuths and spying and all this kind of spy games, you're actually kind of a spy here. And this is the final confrontation. Who is going to win? Those that believe in the dogma. And they finally suppress humanity, and that's the end for this planet. Or we wake people up. We help this world. We plant the seeds now for a completely different future. A future where there is quite a lot of, telepathy, meditation, organic computers, agriculture on another level. We're communicating to plants, communicating to animals again.
Do you feel hopeful that we'll get there?
That is why we're here. And what I've seen of the future is now, I think this generations that have been coming in, we will never see it. It doesn't happen for 400 or 500 years. But we're the planters, we're the way showers, we're the first being, the prophets and everything from the past who came back, to once again be prophets. I mean, because a lot of you, especially you girls, really know kind of a little bit of what's possible in the future. And we can make it happen now. Because we go to planets, because we're cosmic travelers. We like to go to planets that are in need, that are in illusion or in a huge dogma or, under a false God's premise. And we come to wake up the people. We stay for a certain amount of incarnations, but we go back. We travel again. And in this way, we're volunteers here, or we want to help a planet that is lost. That's Earth. In and of itself, it's not people, it's alone. It affects everything else here, even though nature is incredible and can heal itself and can throw us out. And, after the fires, the forest regenerates. It doesn't really need us. It allowed us to be here. And human beings allowed themselves to incarnate here in bodies once they were created. We allowed ourselves to have the spark. We chose it, but we have to face ourselves. So our ancestors too, in essence, also have to face themselves and realize after they die, there's much, much more. And they have to go study. They have to go on the other side and study color or sound or from teachers. They have to evolve. They have to condense their light. So every time you come to Earth, you're condensing light. Every incarnation, you're building more and more light so that you can go higher after you die. When you die, there's always a place for you. There's always comfort after you die. There's wonderful places for you. The goddess of the underworld and the god actually are quite caring. So I don't know why they always say it's hell and it's all dark and it's nothing like that. That's absurd. Even for the Nordic people, hell, the word Hela, the queen of the underworld, was actually she's quite a benevolent person. She tries to help you.
Our grandma used to say that hell was being here on Earth, that this was hell.
Yes. Well, it's definitely a purgatory.
Definitely, yeah.
Choice of getting out of an illusion, getting out of a bubble, getting out of everybody telling you what to do when you know in your heart it's not correct. And then you have to do research. That's a very big thing. A lot of people were wonderful healers and they didn't know actually how to talk about what they did. In other words, there was no language, there was no science, there was nothing that they could explain it in scientific terms. And now lots of people have incarnated to explain it scientifically. So everybody wants proof, everybody wants, and even when you give them the proof, I've seen Christos do unbelievable miracles. I've seen things fall out of the sky, I've seen bilocation of objects, I've seen bilocation, I've seen the whole thing with him. And, what I've seen, people see it with me and they still don't believe. They think it's a trick or a fakir or something. It's not. It's science, And, I had a life where I raised the dead and I did every major healing thing. And still they don't believe. So, of course, I've never given up hope. I watched, Christ in a past life doing incredible miracles. Jesus to me was a magician, was a high soul. He was taught everything. He knew how to do it. Apollonius of Tyana, all my favorite people of that time. And everything that they created, that I still do their practices to this day. They have breathing practices, their meditation practices. I don't know what Christians are doing. I don't know what that is. That's old dogma to me. That's not the original person. It's not even the original story. And I think in Gethsemane, the power of Gethsemane, when Christ is in Gethsemane, I think what he's telling his disciples is, listen, they're going to take everything that I say and do and turn it into a dogma. They're going to distort it all. And they're even going to go for a false God. And I need to tell you now. And I think that is the lesson. The real Eucharist is to wake up from all of this. That happened to me when I was a little kid in the church. I was crying and crying. I was just a little kid. And I was explaining to everybody what the Eucharist is and what Christ actually meant. And, I was just a kid. And telling everybody, this is false, but this is true. My father said, you better be quiet. For Christus, it was more like, we need the exorcist. For me, it was more, why are you questioning everything? Why are you reading? Christus and I are the same. We read the Bible all the time when we were kids, like looking for the truth inside of it. Where is the magic in it? We were obsessed with it as children. I used to go in my backyard and just sit by this little stream and talk to Jesus and say, how are we going to change all? Can you imagine? So that's all of us. We know it in our hearts. Eventually we wake up. And when you wake up, my total awakening was 1985 with lightning, of course. But still, I woke up. I saw nature spirits. I saw elementals. I started to understand things. And higher things, definitely. And see through people and help them with their destinies and blah, blah, blah. All you want to do is service after that. Which I've been doing now 45 years up to now, I started very young. Do you know that I started prayer groups when I was 11 years old?
So young.
Wow.
That is so young.
We used to lay hands on people and bless them. I mean, we did blessings. We were just kids.
Wow.
And those groups were powerful. They were like 90 people came.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Like everybody coming for healing and singing to them. And it was incredible. Shamanism in an early form.
Yeah.
Since you read the Bible so many times, I'm wondering, I want to get your take on this, because I find it like the cross that everyone carries and if that supposedly is the position and died on the cross, right? I feel like I'm trying to, like an ego place, Lucia. If that was me, I definitely wouldn't want everybody to be carrying around that cross. That's like, I want you to remember me with the good things I did, not how I left.
Well, we call that a dark symbol, to have a dead person on a cross. That's a kind of, not necromancy, but that's the closest thing to Satanism to me, to have a dead person on the cross. I'm not really against Satanists either. Satan has nothing to do with that. It was actually a feminine deity. It's completely different than what people think. But let's go to the origins. The cross is a cube. Pandora's box that created life. Good and bad, all of it, out of her wonderful womb. That womb of the feminine is a cube. It's the earth itself. It's you take one cube below, and then you put another cube above. That's an altar. Altars are two cubes above and below, as above, so below. Now, this cube, when you open it three-dimensionally, you have the cross. So Pandora's box is the cross. Pandora's family and her lineage is the family of Mary, Anna, and Christ. So why they made the cross also is actually a put down of the Pandora lineage. Again, another put down of the feminine, like you came from this powerful feminine who created life. And, we make a cross out of the actual, my own altar is a cube. And I take two cubes and I put them on each other, and that's how I do my rituals. And you'll see that in every temple. So that is a high magic, or even, lower magic. Why the cube? You have to understand that it's sacred geometry. It's quite a profound thing. The cube of Earth, and how you draw it, and colors and talismans you put in it to connect to divinity. But that's also Pandora's box. That's where the cross actually comes from.
But that would be the cross that's even, right? Not the cross that we're seeing that's more...
One that we're seeing. It's
okay.
On one side. The equilateral cross is the true cross, of course. The symbol of the earth, the symbol of balance, the symbol of, balancing, everything here, all our habits and everything to evolve. Now, we as human beings were at a higher evolution a long time ago in Atlantis. Remember, we fell. We have fallen really quite far down. So we tried to be like an extraterrestrial civilization. We tried to use technology at a very high level, and we played God in a way that had hubris, that was egotistical, and we destroyed quite a lot here and brought on the Ice Age, and 60 million people died in 24 hours. So that's why we were kind of limited. Our powers were limited, everything. But it was our own undoing. We did it to ourselves. So who were the magicians who did that? Well, Jesus was one of them, destroyed everything in Atlantis. Nikola Tesla, there were so many. And they all had to come back and bring a different way, the way out. Now, what I'm saying is that Moses and all these different saints followed Yahweh. They did not follow El Elyon. They had the choice and they didn't do it. So these are chieftains. These are powerful people. They love power. And by loving power that much, they don't follow the true divinity, the creator. They follow the son of the creator, who's a false god. And I think that's where everything goes wrong. This is what all the feminine deities are trying to tell you, the goddesses. And with compassion for you and love for you, they try to bring you back to realize your real soul, who you actually are. God knows you all feel that. So isn't that, in a way, our ancestors too? Aren't I just trying to explain to you what's in these original books? Because maybe those are your true ancestors, the ones who were free in Babylon, or maybe the ones who went against Atlantis in Lemuria, or were the other side. I was against what they were doing in Atlantis. I had a big mouth, and they shipped me off to Egypt. So I survived the flood because I was in Egypt. And I know that people survived.
Your big mouth saved you.
Yes. And I know the pyramids are older because people went into the pyramids to save themselves. They were sealed to withstand a flood. We know that a lot of these pyramids were underwater for a time.
Wow.
Fascinating things. Anyway, I just remember the beginning of Egypt. I remember the 12 pharaohs, not one. When, the Atlantean symbol was put on Egypt. It's a colony of Atlantis, like the Mayans, like, Peru, Bolivia, like, Santorini in Greece. There were a lot of other communities. And a lot was lost because a lot of the children of Atlantis, though they tried to save them, a lot of them didn't survive. I do believe the real good people of Atlantis try to save the children. They are the memories. They had all the knowledge and they were implanted with crystals. Crystals can, like computers. And those people are now back. And they will continually be coming back. So they wake up. That's why we have all this technology. We have everything from Atlantis, almost. Atlantis had more than we have. So imagine what's coming. And so we are returning, Lorena, Lucia, to a high technological society because we're going to use technology also to wake up. So it's not all bad, as people say, not at all. You have to have that. You have to have a certain amount of knowledge and science in order to restore ourselves back to where we belong. That is going to happen, and that's why we're here. Okay? And then next week, we have to do it again.
That's interesting, though, that you're saying that, because that's what I get now, where it's the science is being suppressed, like information's being suppressed. People are being suppressed, communication's being suppressed. Like, how are we going to get through this? Like, what's going to happen? Because to me, it's really bad.
It's a memory. You know that they have a memory from Atlantis of being controlled. That's I don't want to have a vaccination. I don't want to be imprinted. I don't want them to do the same thing they did to me in Atlantis. It's just a racial memory. You see, people are terrified. It's all happening again. That means they lived in Atlantis. That means they lived in other time periods where this happened, or communists, or there's a lot of things. Nazism. There's a lot of being controlled, and you have a lot of fascists back. So there are always troublemakers. Now, that's a big thing, Lorena, Lucia, to know who the troublemakers are. So they're 5% of the population. They make the most trouble for everybody. Some of them are dark spirits, meaning when they die, they have a choice whether to return back to incarnation or go to the other side. And most of them don't go to the other side. They come right back into form and they make a havoc here. And they get every opportunity. They become world leaders like the president of North Korea or Gaddafi or, whoever they become. They get everything, and there's a lot of good things in them. And they don't follow it. Women marry a lot of these dark spirits. They try to give them unconditional love to break them through. Sometimes they're your own parents. Sometimes, they're someone you fall in love with. But they don't change, no matter how much we try to help them. And I just feel like their time is limited. This is the end.
So what they would leave and come back, and then leave and come back. At some point, does that wheel end for them? And
because all the wheels are ending. We are in the time period where you could end all your karmas.
The samsara. In Spanish, samsara.
Samsara, the wheel.
Yeah.
And you get off the wheel by waking up, by realizing we create our own destinies, by having enough knowledge to create your own destiny. So when I do a full moon ceremony or something, I do it because so many people are doing ceremonies on that day, right? Or on the equinox or whatever. So I just harvest that energy. I'm more powerful. Do you understand that?
That's amazing.
I'm not really all the time governed by the movement of the moon or the planet. You start to become your own universe in the center. That's different. You're changing your fate. You're regenerating yourself through that. You're turning in a different direction sometimes. Of course, it gets scary, Lorena, and this is because you can leave your body, and once you start realizing time is changing every morning, that we're also going through time shifts. So not only is all this happening, but time is also, it's a construction. It's not real. So time is also altering. So you wake up in the morning, it's not necessarily the same dimension. And that gets weird. And then you start to tune into that, and then you get very ungrounded, so you have to really ground yourself. You have to have more earth because you're going higher and higher and higher. And some days I have to tell you, I use a spirit named Bhima, and I ask Bhima to please ground me. Please help me to find peace here, because I'm flying away sometimes, because I'm realizing, okay, the dimensions are clearing. I can play with time. I can go into a portal. I'm a shaman. I love portals. And there are real portals, where you disappear and you go somewhere else.
That gets complicated because then time's probably going faster, which everyone feels that, but that you're trying to live the same sort of life that has that structure of all those hours.
Doesn't exist.
And then you're exhausted.
Yeah. And time, the speed of light, there's something faster than it, which is the speed of thought.
Yes.
So our thoughts are incredibly fast, and something is happening now. We went through something that's galactic. So there is a wave that's going through the galaxies. So it's not just our planet. It's going through all the galaxies, and it just happened to pass now through our solar system. And as it's passing, everything is not the same anymore. Things have sped up. The old prophecies of Nostradamus or whatever may not be true anymore. Time may have been altered. And whenever you go near Greenwich time or any city that's called Greenwich or whatever, people played with time in experiments, scientific experiments, whether in Montauk, Long Island, or in Philadelphia, or in Russia. They did time experiments, or in Poland. The Nazis did in Poland. I mean, it altered everything. So there may be little glitches in time. what I have seen as a shaman, because I love infinity. I love to stay in the void. I find very comforting. You know how witches stayed in the dark at night and did their rituals? It's the way I love the void. Staying in there with the fifth element, with Akasha, I'm much happier. You don't have a body, you don't have these things, you have to practice that so you don't freak out. But I love it there. And when I'm there, I realize in the future, on Earth, somebody already played with time in such a way that they averted a terrible disaster. And so we already live in a time that's already been altered. And I think that's what you're feeling. The ripple went already through everyone. And we know that now. And we know that there's certain corrections that you have to go for the higher thing, or you have to evolve spiritually without going crazy. You have to go.
That, like what you just said is like.
Or the fact that this universe, where we are right now, exists in a black hole. So the reason why I love to stay, in a, here we go, why I like to stay in this wonderful void, this fifth element, is because our solar system anyway is in a black hole. And in a black hole, there's many possibilities. It's based on choice. It's based on what we feel. So if you suddenly realize that, then nothing is the same. And, then you can start to understand black holes and why we study them. And we're trying to understand our own solar system. We're trying to understand ourselves and take the Jacob's ladder out. So I love the Big Bang. I love to make the original sounds of the Big Bang, like and duh, and how life was created with sound. And I like to say it again over and over again. And what happens is you're manifesting again your own life. You're manifesting creation with your own intention. And within certain laws, quite amazing. So that's one thing. So that's why I like to practice in the dark, and I like all the things that the witches did. I now understand exactly what they were doing.
That's so cool.
And you feel it. And same thing with shamanism, with infinity, going into infinity. Why I love dragons. Dragons, it's, you listen to Joseph Campbell and it says, oh, you have to slay your dragons. And that's all the stuff of your ego. That's not really it. Dragons are not bad. They're positive. They slay the dragons because the blood of dragons takes you to infinity. Dragons were the teachers of infinity, and we slayed them because human beings didn't understand no time. And the dragons, of course, left this world, and they live in Akasha. So here we go again. And, and also in the interior of the earth. Dragons, how can I describe this to you? Are wonderful, benevolent creatures that teach you about infinity and beyond time. And I think we weren't ready for it, and I think we just destroyed them. I think they had other treasures. And we forgot. We just wanted the blood. I think humanity does some really kind of crazy things. They kind of kill all these beings without understanding why they even existed, these monsters in the first place. But they're not monsters. They actually want to help us. So I think that's another thing. We're changing our perception of the past. So to me, I have gone into some very dark places. Believe me, I did the Kabbalah backwards, meaning I also went down into the Cliffoth, where it's really dark. And then you get into vampires and all the, werewolves, all the crazy stuff. And dark witches, everything, dark spells. But when you go down there, you also meet all the fifth element beings, and you meet wonderful beings who people demonized. They were the old gods and goddesses. And so I went into my past, into my ancestry, and I found out what they believed in. Who were their gods, their goddesses, and who are they really? And then I started to make friends with them. I'm not here to control a demon or something. I don't believe in demons. They're all spirits to me. I learned to communicate with them. This is, to me, internet. This is what media is really about. Let's communicate with all of creation. And yes, I'm not naive. I know there are lower astral forms. I know there are some nasties, really dark things that human beings created, really dark. And that they exist now because you create a thought form and you give it life, and, they're phantoms. and there's huge phantom worlds. But all those ghosts, I also met some wonderful beings whom I really love, who love rituals, and they used to take over my stereo system, basically, and they used to talk to me through the stereo system, and they used to play love songs to me, because I met like Cupid, and Cupid played all these love songs to me, and lots of other spirits. But they would take over the whole music.
All of a sudden, the radio background, let's get it on.
Oh my God. And we influenced all that music of the 60s and 70s.
I love it.
Yes.
Even now. And they say, you want to hear how we influenced music, how we influenced to wake you up to the time when you were all united, to the time when you spoke one language. So I think for me, runes, everything is to go back to the one language, to be able to communicate with angels, which, I love those angelic languages too, which is, again, you get into Enochian and how to speak Enochian and how to talk to yet another solar system's angels. And then people got scared of Enochian because they said it would bring on the apocalypse. Probably true. If they come into this dimension too much, you probably have an apocalypse because two things kind of crunch each other. But fascinating what you learn. Languages that you learn, and maybe you're getting closer to original language and how powerful it is.
But do you think what's the closest language that we speak closest to that, like our past?
Well, probably, first of all, Russian is a very advanced language. Greek is a very advanced language, definitely. Sanskrit, very advanced. The one language, when they decided that English should be the main language when you travel, I think they encoded a lot of things in English. I hate to tell you. I don't think rituals are in English because there's not enough magic in English. There's not enough, it's not soaked with magic, in a ritual like Greek is, or, definitely Hebrew is. I think that original language is frequency, it's sound. It's pure sound. I think we're going back to that as vibrational medicine. When I told you when I was a kid, I did all these vibrations in a laboratory where I had to sing to cancer cells and sing to there were different songs for each different illness. And they were just test tubes or people. They brought me people's bodies because I would sing the most. And I love to reverse illnesses with a song. It was just the frequency. And you could go into a frequency which is called the Fibonacci Series. Through my heart, I could, 1 + 2 = 3, 2 + 3 = 5. And this is this beautiful spiral, but you can create it in sound. And that's what healing is. It's the Fibonacci.
Isn't it funny that they use Fibonacci for spiritual, but then I also learned it when I was learning trading?
Yes.
It's funny how it also goes to the financial system as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's the core. It's one of the core ways to heal everything and to bring things into balance and to, oh my God, there's too much in that. Then I can go in now into why it works and how do you work with that, with Kabbalah and everything. Another thing, when you're clearing your past, so a lot of the things that you clear inside of yourself is not yours. It's from your family. So a lot of it you're going to get and sense through your mother. The things she didn't face, whatever, the things she inherited and what she could deal with, what she couldn't deal with, she kind of dumped it on you because if they don't reconcile it, you get it. Whatever's unfinished, whatever's rejected. If your parents live the house and garden life and everything is perfect and we live in our little perfection, you're going to have a rebellious daughter. Definitely destroy the garden. Why is that? Because you are clearing the ancestral past. You are aware of something much deeper that no one's talking about. For you, they don't see the darkness. They don't feel it. They don't feel, the things that they did to have that kind of power. The way they treated other people too, and families. We all have a great reckoning of our families of, oh my God, how badly they treated all these people. And these workers and this and women and because they believed in these dogmas. And as Christians, how they condemned and how ruthless they were and how they just were greedy and I always say it's very good to be a Christian because real Christians need it because they're some of the worst people in past lives. Just to let you know, they're like really liars, cheaters, whatever. And they go into Christianity because they need to be regulated. They need to be controlled. Or they would wreak havoc here if they weren't Christians. They have to find their heart, something higher, higher principle, angels, something more. And they do. But then, of course, they make everybody else wrong, which is proselytizing. Somebody's really off when they have to proselytize or become a missionary for it. Having said that, I still believe in being a missionary for the Mother Goddess. If you're going to be a missionary for the truth, for El Elyon, for she, for her. El Elyon means really Mother, Father, God. It's both. So when you're clearing ancestral memory inside of you, first of all, it starts with dreams. If you start to ask for it, you're drawing it to you. I want to clear my ancestors' memories and how it affects me now. So a lot of things start to happen. First comes quite a lot of chaos, like if they had car accidents, if they had problems with childbirth, if they had problems with losing babies, a lot of these things are going to start coming up. You're going to start dreaming about it. You're going to start going through it in the subconscious mind. Plus, it's going to trigger your past lives, so that's also happening. All the frustrations of the past, everything. So you have to stay above it. This is the big thing in spirituality. You must transcend these things that are lost in polarity, in love and hate, and it was so bad, and I can't forgive myself, and I can't forgive all those people, and usually you can't forgive yourself. You've got to transcend it, meaning you've got to be positive. You've got to be optimistic. You've got to burn your karmas. And how do you do that? Well, a violet flame, going through hellfire. Hellfire is one of my favorite things. If you really want to understand hell, you go through, in Kabbalah, it's called Da'at. It's a sphere, but it is a place where you go through these gates and there's hellfire. And you pass through the hellfire and it purifies you. And you no longer think in right and wrong, good and bad. You think in terms of either you do something too much or you do it too little. And then you're imbalanced. It's all about balance. It's not about good and bad anymore. That's when you go through hellfire and it burns away all your dogmas. So I would create a ritual in which you have to go through hellfire, in which you have to imagine it, in which you have to go through this kind of flame that doesn't burn you in the normal way, but it burns out every impurity of thought, every impurity of dogma, every impurity of what you believe about yourself that's not true, or what you inherited from your parents that's not true about you, or what you inherited from them that they believed about themselves that has nothing to do with your life.
Or what they believe about you that's also not true.
Exactly. All of that burns in hellfire. And you want to go through the fire. And you want to imagine the gateway of that fire and go through it to the other side where you're purified. So I think it's hell because you have to face yourself. You have to look in the mirror. You have to see, all that past and everything, and not judge yourself and not hate yourself for it. I think you do the final judgment on yourself now. I don't think anybody judges you. You already know enough. The only reason why we get into marriages and fall in love with someone is because we wanted to create the soulmate idea so that people, bond to somebody and commit to somebody. And it's kind of gotten really off. It's like, now I don't want to do it at all. It didn't really work. So we let these experiments go and we learn to be better people. We learn to commit anyway. We learn to improve somebody, right? But very hard to do. You can't really affect somebody else's life. They have to want to change themselves. So forget that.
Amen.
Same thing with families. Like after a while, if I went to the original ancestors that was quite dark in my family, and I went down there, they would just destroy me. I don't need that. So instead of going down deep and finding the cause, I went the other way. I went into my own depths and darkness and came out of it okay, clean. And the more spiritual practices you do, the more, rituals or spiritual practices or prayers or good things, whatever, even helping somebody, you're burning all that karma. guys. It's finishing. And just doing your work, just so committed to the work, right? Of light, light is burning it, and, you see everything is light, and you're bringing tremendous, like a 10,000 suns into your body. Okay? That's light. And you're doing that, and it's making you pregnant with new ideas, new concepts, new ways that you want to shape things so people see things differently. New art, new ideas, new books, new music, new everything. Somebody said to me the other day, oh, all this modernism, it's also so satanic. And I just looked at them like, no, it's not. It's one of the most wonderful things to be modern, to evolve and to think of the future and create things for the future, even if it's agricultural things, even if it's ways that we will sustain ourselves in the future, even if it's an aesthetic for the future. That, I think, it requires a certain intelligence, a certain concept of beauty. But a lot of us also want to design the future here. Like a Zaha Hadid with architecture, or, Rick Owens with clothes and housewares, or whatever. They're creating a future. I kind of love that, I have to say. And they're inspired by temple work. Absolutely. I love the Egyptians because their idea, when you go into your past in Egypt, past lives in Egypt, it's higher mental concepts. So I kind of love Egypt because you learn every higher mental concept. I love the curanderas and the understanding of their world because it's so connected to earth and healing and herbs and how to heal very effectively. And it's very feminine based. And the moon, and giving birth to yourself, and going through initiations as a woman to not go crazy and not, give into your dogmas, and to have a breakthrough where you meet, how can I say this? The matron or patron, the being that helps you. Some people call that the holy guardian angel. You meet the one who's guiding your life, and it becomes very real to you.
The curandera thing, that's like my dream,
Yes,
like to become that. Mm-hmm. I've been studying herbalism the past, few months, and I've been going back to the old herbal books. Mm-hmm. I was like, they already knew how to cure everything, and it was just lost. Just
like the Vedas. They have the Vedas. They have these books, the Vedas, from a previous epic, and most of the Vedas are cures for everything. They're different cures. So our ancestors left it all for us. Just people don't know how to translate it, correctly. Like, what is that herb now? Because we have a different language system. Your understanding of the curandera that goes far back is your real ancestry. Because remember, a midwife stayed with the family. She stayed with the kids. She was their spiritual advisor. You're not just birthing kids. You're advising them. You're like really their grandmother. You're really the one who cares. And children needed that. We lost all of that. I think the Christians completely destroyed all of that. And it's slowly coming back. I think as a curandera, you're going to be confronted with dark spirits and people who attack you and all that kind of stuff. And you have to rise above it. Again, you have to...
Oh, been there, done that.
That's like Lucia to a T.
But I curse them out. Oh my God, Foster, I just start cursing like an old sailman. Like I'm like... Blah, 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 blah.
And then you have to go through it with a lot of confidence because you have to transcend it. Because if you get too lost in polarity and always protecting, you're creating the very thing you're protecting yourself against. So you step into your power. That's what I'm more interested in. You step into the powers of the curandera. Like, I don't see any difference. You have to create with sound. Whether it's song, you have to go to plant teachers, for instance. Like, sometimes, I talk to my mandragora, the mandragora plant. I have the root of a mandragora. It sits by my bed. It has its own bed next to me. It's very funny. And it looks at me while I'm sleeping. And sometimes at night, I put it under my pillow or I hold it while I'm sleeping the whole night. So the mandragora is a master teacher. And the mandragora interacts with your own subconscious mind and It affects your dreams. It affects quite a lot of things. It uses the different astrological things to manifest different images for you. Like the other day, I dreamt of a 400-year-old witch. She told me the name of her coven, her order, and why she's an original witch. And she wanted to teach me something. And, you know, you wake up very happy, full of energy and refreshed. I wrote it all down. You have to write it down, because you don't want to forget. You want to keep the bond open. And you don't want to contradict yourself. That's number one. When you're dealing with anything that you believe in, stop contradicting it. Because if you say it and then you contradict it, nothing happens. You have to believe in your ability to heal with herbs, and that it opens worlds for you, and that you love it. And that you respond with the plants, and they teach you, how to help somebody and how to use them and how to work. No, it's fantastic. Healing is always to do the least resistance in life. All of nature, of course, is abundance and is positive. So that's kind of the antidote to everything that human beings do and your ancestors have done. They've done very good things. And obviously, the number one thing you thank your ancestors for is that they survived. Because they went through every deluge, everything possible, and they survived. And so they're very hardy people. If you're still on earth, you survived. So you have that. So I always say to my ancestors, thank you for helping me to survive. That's why I'm here, to go, beyond anything you ever learned, or bring the spiritual knowledge here and the laws, and apply them to plants, and apply them, or create something here that is attuned with you. Maybe a garden, maybe something, maybe a whole new way of, you can do everything indoors now. You can do everything with plants. You can make your own microenvironments. Welcome to technology. My friend was growing marijuana, and he created, I don't really take marijuana, but he's a marijuana grower. That's what he does. And he has, 60 football fields of marijuana. But he also has dirt on the ground. He also talks to all the plants. He also studies shamanism. He also studied, something called the Tower of Alchemy. He also understands alchemy. And intuitively, he talks to the plant, and the plant tells him what they need to become more effective and to be healers, not to just get people high and make them escape, but how to help people to heal.
Well, I heard the story that plants have this frequency that they release when the individual that takes care of them, they know it's there. If they need something, they'll release a frequency, and that person will be attracted towards the plant to be like, oh, let me see how the plant's doing. Oh, I need some water, kind of thing.
Because they're alive, because they feel. And that's the secret life of plants, or the secret life of soil. These books by Christopher Bird, where he goes through the experiments with you, and you see that they really do feel all the time. Which is kind of amazing to me. It's weird, that I see, plants growing in the grocery store, and you take them home, and then you have fresh basil. It's kind of weird for me, but, it's okay. But animals, I can't stand it. Like the way they treat animals in cages. And no, that's not for me.
Yeah, it's sad.
No. And a lot of people are clairvoyant now with animals. I have a lot of students.
Yes.
Whole work is only animals.
I love that.
And that's going to come more and more now as we get refined. So let's talk about this. 51% of the planet will go up. They will get more refined. Look, one of the biggest platforms in the world is Gaia. And so many people, I don't know how many millions tune into Gaia, this channel on TV. And some people are just transforming right now to become the 51%. If 51% opens and realizes all this, whether through books or maybe these books will be released, because I do think these libraries, this is the end. Those books will come out, but you see, they're protecting them because the Christians will burn them. The religions will destroy them. They want nothing but their own dogmas here. So they have to be released in such a way that everybody gets the translation and understands what are they really saying. Do I think there are translators of these books? Absolutely. Christos definitely is one of them. He's a code breaker. He wrote some of the books in a previous life. That's why he can remember.
Oh my gosh.
So that's why you want somebody who remembers. That's far memory.
Yeah.
That's also when you regress somebody in past lives, you can regress them to the point that they get so deep in a trance that they start speaking an Egyptian language, Sumerian language, ancient languages. That's also going down, down, down. It's the same metaphor of penetrating deeper and deeper into your mind to these old civilizations to find out what is the truth. And that's what's in these books. They kind of in these hidden libraries deep in the ground. And you have to go there in your astral body at night and really get the knowledge if you want it. And because you have a desire for it, I do believe the two of you are getting it anyway. We're just trying to make it conscious for you, you know? Most of my life, I just wanted to be a little curandero, you know, and live. And then I lived with Indians. I lived with people, and I was very happy. But it requires a tremendous humility. You know what I mean? It requires simplicity of life. Even though I met some wonderful, very powerful curanderos and curanderas, you do have to do quite a sacrifice. You do have to surrender quite a lot of your potential. Because a lot of you have already been in temples. You've already done so many things. You've already, and now you're getting the knowledge, and now you're kind of excited. You have to stay with one practice, though, long enough. You have to really stay in the homework.
I think that happens to a lot of people. They get excited about learning about so many different things, and it's like your concentration's all on so many different directions.
So I always learned that you keep your ancestors that don't help you outside your circle. Second, you always journey to the sacred place of your ancestors and yourself. And this is usually a cave where you go all the way back to your Neanderthal ancestors and all the other generations too. They all a lot of them are in a cave. And that happened to me a lot in shamanic journeying. Every time I was in a shamanic journey, I ended up in the same cave. And I said, who are all these people sitting in this cave around this fire? That's your ancestors. And you just sit there with them in the fire so that you feel connected. The key is to finally feel connected to something. And then, then I would leave there and they would take me on little tangents in other caves. And I would eventually leave the cave into another world. And there would be a stone circle or a circle of trees. And that would begin the training in nature. You know, I have an elf that helps me who has 2 different colored eyes, is quite an unusual character, and is an elf. And the elf is the one who always protects me from the fact that a fairy can change reality for you, can change time, and can change everything. And you can even get trapped in a fairy world. They love to play with human beings. So the elf always kind of guides me when I'm in a forest, whatever, and I get lost in a fog in the middle of a forest. Has happened to me in England. You know, the elf guides me out of the maze of the fairies when they try to trap you. So I've learned, you know, there are a lot of tricky spirits out there who are quite fascinating. You know, how much do you want this? This is another thing. You always get tested. There's constantly tests. So not only is time speeding up, but you're tested even more. And you must have felt that during COVID because it was a near-death experience that united a whole planet in death.
I didn't feel it. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel the death at all at any point, though.
Well, you know, just yesterday, for instance, Thierry Mugler died, who was a fashion designer that we knew in Paris.
Yeah, I heard about that. So sad.
The day before that, another person who was, you know, the assistant editor of Vogue, you know, who had a very hard time at the end of his life, but, you know, Telly died. And there's a person who dies every single day en masse now. And you feel it. People died. Okay, they're famous people. They're not personal to you, whatever. I had a friend in Argentina who died, whom we cared very much about. And then there's a lot of our friends' parents, a lot of their spouse, a lot of people died. Why?
I agree with that. I feel it more this year than ever.
Because you're immune if your family went through one of the plagues. You know, there were terrible plagues before, you know. And if you survive those, you have a stronger immune system for what happened in COVID. And for those people who have always kind of given up and said, this is not my time, and I don't have the energy for this fight, they leave. And a lot of people who are too dogmatic, who got stuck in, it's all, Atlantis all over again. And, they say it in another way, through what I would call something I really don't like, which is conspiracy theories. Too many conspiracy theories. When you're caught up in them, you'll really get lost. And all of spirituality is not a conspiracy theory. Though there are the big ones like Jesus's death and all that is big conspiracies. But the way that they do conspiracies now and confuse you, and you don't know what reality really is anymore, and you don't know which is the right news, that's a trap. And a lot of those people die.
There's like a bombardment from both sides, like all over the place. It's like you just need to find the center in the middle.
Exactly. It's all polarity, It's always been political polarity or whatever it is. You stay in your own path and you find peace. This is the curandera. You find peace anyway. You listen to spirit, not to people. You listen inside. But again, that's the initiation. Did you pass your test during COVID? Or did you just become neurotic? And just, everything is ego. And then you blame your partner for everything. And then, there's divorces. And then there's, no, please.
Yeah, no.
It means you didn't do the inner work. So the inner work of cleaning out, it's not just ancestral work. It's that you have to face yourself. What is your resistance? What are the things, the dogmas that stop you from going deeper? You've got to go on the journey. And you can only go on the journey if you're always outer and outer directed and everything is work and outer world and da-da-da. That's great in your 20s. It can be even good in your 30s. But later on, it's not so good. I started at 25, definitely the inner life. Much more than the outer. It shifted. The inner work then is shadow work. So whether it's your ancestors or whatever, you're back again to the shadow. And for women, the shadow might be that women were not allowed to be educated. Women were not allowed to be fulfilled, Women had to just do this, children, make food, stay in the house all day.
I think that was, for me, like a lot of moms, that was one of my big issues during COVID. I wasn't like, I didn't feel the death thing. I was feeling like I have no time to myself. So my child was home with me and I love her and she's so many reasons why my life is amazing, but it's like I didn't have time to go in as much as other people that maybe didn't have children. I didn't have time to read all those books that I wanted to really read, or or it's like you're saying, Gaia. I would sit down and watch Gaia for 20 hours if I could do that.
So your choice was to have the child, and that demands a sacrifice. I sacrificed all this for my child. Not forever. It's just for a certain time. And then it will pass. And then, Lucia, that's your test. Do you still want to read those books? Do you still want to do those things? Do you still want to study those things? Because then you're going to have the time.
Well, I'm beating the system. I'm putting it on audiobook and I'm cleaning the house meanwhile.
Or you're going to write a book. Because this whole time you've been incubating something else. The very thing you want to learn, you're growing towards. And the only way to reveal it to yourself sometimes is to speak it or write it in some way that it comes out of you. Because maybe before you were born, you already wrote it, and now you're remembering, and now you have to write it. Do you understand?
I could see her writing a book.
Yes.
I sit down and like create stuff all the time for like us. I think about what should we teach, can that help? I always think about empowering people. Like what can Lorena and I talk about next that will empower people more or make them feel like they want to.
Impregnated. You look like you're filled with the symbols, and now I want to sort them all out. And
don't tell that to my partner; he'll run away.
Well, they plow through their own shadow. That's a relationship. One goes through their tunnel, and you go through your tunnel. Hopefully, the two tunnels meet one day. Okay, that's a relationship. Inner work. Okay, real inner work. First of all, you have to be grounded. You have to first have enough earth to go higher. So you put a lot of earth in your legs put a lot of earth in your system. I worked on a woman the other day. She had too much earth. She's part of a coven, and she had just so much earth. I just said, you can't have earth in your heart. It's not good for you. It's blocking out the sun. I don't know what that is. And so she allowed herself to free herself from too much earth. But in the beginning, first few years, you need earth. Okay? You need to have some common sense. You need to be here in logic. And then you go further, because in a way, you're going to astral travel. You're going to do rituals. You're going to be the center of the ritual. You're going to empower yourself. You're going to meet other spirits. You're going to become for a time the goddess herself. And you're going to command forces, and you have to believe in yourself. You have to feel like, I know enough, or I'm ready. All the tests are to see, are you ready? Are you ready yet? Are you ready? Are you ready to teach that? Are you ready to do that? Did you visualize your deity's temple and superimpose it over your little altar in your house? There's lots of things you can do. There's a million techniques. So in shamanism, you can do journeys to your ancestors in a shamanic journey. You can go back in, a shamanic journey, you go down into the earth always. I go underneath a tree. And then there's a tunnel that opens, and I go with my power animal through the tunnel. And I ask very specifically before the journey my intention. And my intention usually is, like for this particular journey, I would like to meet my ancestors, or I'd like to correct the karmas of the past. Then you go on the journey, and wherever the tunnel leads you, you open out into a space, and there, whatever you see is the confrontation with the past. And sometimes, my guides would say, Foster, there's no more karma. There's nothing to do. It's finished. It's beyond the past. You're done. But sometimes I'm working on somebody, and so I'm journeying for them. That I do a lot more. And you go into their subconscious mind, and then you see people in their past, ancestors, and you have to talk to them. Do you know when anybody does a reading with me, I immediately start talking to their father, their mother, their grandmother, and I start talking to everybody in the family. I call like a council. And I ask them, so what's your opinion about them? Viewing their life from your side. Maybe I even call your ex-partners, and I say, how did you view this person? Because I don't just listen to the person anymore. I listen to all the different voices, and I want to hear a kind of composite idea of, what does the higher self now have to say about all this? And then you say it like it is to the person, like water on their face, but it's good for them. Like, your ex, this is what they think about you. I think you need to really forgive what happened. You used your ex to get out of your family, so you married young, just to get out, and then you dump them. Okay? So you just have to face it, just be honest. Some women, I just say, you were a gold digger, you had a shovel, and you just wanted the money. And now you're crying that they died? I mean, really? Or you cried that it didn't work out, that you couldn't tolerate it for 25 years? Of course you couldn't, because it wasn't love. You were like shoveling the money, for security. Do you really want to do that anymore? What about your own inner security and developing your own sense of finances yourself? That's number one for women. Definitely that's how you break the past, is to have your own bank account. To have your own money. Once a woman has her own money, that already changes the past. Once a woman gets educated, even if she slaps a degree on the wall, that's already incredible, because women couldn't do that before.
Yeah, they had to go to their partner or their spouse and be like, I would like to go buy this. Can I have? Just so disempowering.
Oh no, the 1960s, a woman wasn't allowed to write her own check.
Wow, I didn't know that.
No, the banking laws only changed after the 60s.
Oh my gosh.
Gay people had zero rights. You couldn't do anything.
That's crazy.
Changed
a lot, huh? So quickly.
Oh my God. A woman only got the right to vote in Switzerland so late. You can't imagine. Just recently, a woman got the right to vote in Switzerland. Come on. That's really late. I mean, that's backward.
But you were talking at one point about like periods, and it's like a time of purification. I mean, I've heard stories of women aren't allowed in, some religions into the temple while they have their period because the devil's taking over their body or something.
No, you're purifying. You're in your power. I would do a rainbow lodge. I would stay with it. I would document what's coming. I would look deeper in my dreams. This is a woman's power. I would use it. I would also use the blood, whatever.
That too, yeah, of course.
It's very powerful on a rune. Runes are only activated through blood.
Mm-hmm.
To say it, or red ink. It's very ancestral. Or saliva in mumia.
I use saliva on mine.
Yeah, you have to wake them up.
I have a set, and I didn't know how to do that. I actually haven't. I just have them there still.
Oh no! Put the blood on it, or put sweat on it, or put something.
I tried to prick my finger, and I couldn't. I think the needle I had just, I don't know. I was like, oh.
Do it once, and then you have to squeeze. You have to squeeze your fingers.
Yeah. No, I feel like, I don't know. I had too many
Are you putting it on all of them one by one?
Well, Lorena, I will show you. I will show you how to do that. So that's why I said menstrual fluid.
Yeah, that could probably be easier.
Really work. It's blood.
Yeah, it's true.
Some deities you do give a drop of blood, just to make a bond, because it's your essence you're giving. So this is, again, your ancestors. You want to get to the essence. What is the essence of my family? Not like the way the Nazis did it with the Vril Society and all that stuff. What is your essence? What's the essence that you want to bring through that will elevate your family, will get them back? So I think a lot of families just lost their spiritual path. They lost the connection to divine. That's what happened. And that's why we were born into families, some of which we have no idea who our father and mother are. I know I chose my mother because, in Atlantis, she was a geneticist, and she was very interested that everybody be equal. And she wanted to see that fulfilled in her lifetime. So she incarnated. So I understand my mother on a higher level. Second is my father, who is always he was an advisor and a counselor to princes and kings and, all that kind of stuff. He was always a great coach, counselor. He did hypnosis, biofeedback, all that stuff. And I wanted him as my father. You see what I mean? You choose your parents, but some people, just for the bloodline they came, or just to enhance it and to bring spirituality back to the bloodline when zero existed.
Wow. I never saw that side of it.
Yeah. Now, when you're clearing yourself and you're going through the fire, you want to create events in your life, initiations to clear yourself. So when society creates COVID to clear themselves, to face their own fears of illness, their own face of isolation, their own fear of non-connection, that is to get people to start realizing, what is our connection? How do we stay antiseptic? How do we, become clean? What is all this about? It's to reveal things, actually. Because the cities were not so good, and now they're getting more violent after COVID. Things were not what you thought it was. And I think we're on this path right now where this great revealing is happening. So your ancestral reveal is a big thing to realize, like maybe your family tree had another branch and somebody, had another family, or what happened to my brother or sister? Why did they die? That always touches me, especially when a spirit wants to be photographed. Like your daughter dies and then you take a photograph of her. Or the baby doesn't survive. You take a photograph of who they are now astrally, because they'll be now the age they were supposed to be. They're a spirit helper for that family now. You honor your ancestors in the East in a very profound way, with an altar. And they're there. They're there. You don't put any living people ever on your ancestral altar. Because then you're making them die, actually. Not really, but, you're kind of associating that. Another thing, when you're clearing yourself in your ancestries, for instance, things will come to you. I had a nanny, and I grabbed her arm. I loved my nanny. She had a green thumb. She was kind of an earth woman. And I grabbed her with my hand at one time. And then I saw that she murdered me. And I watched her murder me. She was like she was my cleaning woman in this house that I lived in. And she and her husband killed me. And I watched the whole thing, gruesome.
Whoa.
And then she turned to me and she said, now you understand why I'm with you. I came at the moment of your birth. I'll be here until you're 21. And then I go.
Wow.
So I understand.
That's impactful. Yeah.
Because my mother, she was there, but the nanny came the day before I was born. Like she knew the day. And she stayed with me exactly to 21. She left. And she used to hide my spiritual books because my parents wouldn't let me read spiritual books. They were against that. So we had to hide them in her room.
Wow, that's amazing.
She helped me.
Yeah.
And of course, we used to feed we had ducks and chickens and peacocks and all that stuff. And so she would help me feed them the finch cage, and then I used to feed all the fish. We had so many fish. And and I had my parakeets and I had a minor bird. And I had my pet raccoons. I really lived like in a menagerie. And she was with me the whole time. We were with the animals, talking to the animals. I had an organic garden. I grew my own vegetables. I was just a kid. I loved all that. I used to talk to ivy. I loved ivy. I don't know what it is with me and ivy, but I loved it. And I used to use that to do binding spells. The ivy.
You mean like ivy, like the vine ivy?
Yes, I used to use that for ivy. But I loved it. I used to put in my hair and walk around. I'm very pagan. I was a kid. I didn't know what that was yet. I didn't know who Pan was yet. Then I fell in love with all that.
I found interesting. You said you had raccoons. You had like as a pet?
It's a pet. They only last until 2 years old because then they go wild. So we had them as babies. So they were just little babies and you feed them with milk, like a mother. And then they stay with you. They used to stay on my shoulder or sleep with me in bed. I slept with my raccoon.
My daughter barely ever talks about, I've never heard her talk about a dream, but one day we were sitting around and she said, we were looking at animals and I was trying to make sure she repeated them. And then we got to raccoon and she said, she was telling me that raccoon had been in her dream. And that was the first time I've ever heard about one of her dreams. I was like, I think this is the first time you've seen a raccoon, but you're telling me you dreamt of a raccoon. I was like, wait, what?
They're night animals, you see, so they like to be at night. They like to wander around at night. They start to wake up at night with them. Plus they go to the bathroom at night and they do all these things at night. It's unbelievable because you also have to clean them constantly. And they carry their babies with them on their back and they're very maternal. But they're wild creatures and they belong in the wild. And when they're 2 years old, they bite you and then they say, I'm leaving. I said, I had to get a rabies shot, but I love them. And the problem is because we take them out of the wild, they don't know how to exist in the wild. And so they don't make it. A lot of them don't make it.
Yeah.
Right. I try to teach it everything, but it's very hard. I met a shaman and then we started to track things. So the shaman immediately started to say, I'm putting you in front of a videotape. This was a very unconventional shaman. I put you in front of a videotape and you have to talk to your mother and father. You have to say everything you've never said to them. You have to reveal everything about yourself. And so they videotaped it and then you had to watch yourself saying it all afterwards. And there was a lot of self-revealing, a lot of meditation. I had to meditate 7 days in silence, within myself, doing Vipassana meditation and all that, cleaning myself out. Every thought, everything becomes generic. Thinking, feeling. And then after 7 days, and very little to eat and all that kind of stuff, you're fasting, you're transforming. Then the shaman makes you eat, lots of garlic, ginger, and onions for days and days and days of that, of cleaning out your body, cleaning out all the toxins in your body. They give you all sorts of herbs and plants. And then pretty soon you get to the next stage where they take you out in nature and then you have to interact first with the breezes. They used to throw me, in cold water, like freezing cold water, put me in the snow naked, always naked. And you have to fend for yourself. You have to learn survival. You have to learn to build up your willpower. And you have to use and control your mind to think heat when it's cold. Even in snow, you have to melt the snow. You have to do basically the Wim Hof method. You have to do this form of breathing to stay warm. And we learned all that with the shamans. Because sometimes you meet other shamans. Some of them are wily characters. They're really tricksters shamans. But they're fantastic. And they teach you things about your ancestors. Like all of a sudden they would say something to me that would trigger me about, something I believed about death or something I believed about from my ancestors I didn't know. And then they would start to unravel it. Like, you have these patterns, and these patterns have existed in your family for a long time. And now comes the unraveling. And you would unravel. And so it all went in stages. And it was like things being lifted off. And when I left them, I felt clean. And then it was time to do service, to help people. Because I was there. I could control my thoughts. I wasn't getting over emotional anymore. I was kind of even. So that you could work with people. You had self-control. That they taught me. And they made me do crazy stuff. Like I had to run 14 kilometers in 50 minutes. I had to be able to run faster in my astral body than in my physical body, and then take my body with me. So I had to learn new ways to use your mind. They used to hang me off mountain cliffs with just a rope around my waist, so I would not be afraid of heights or falling, because in past lives, people pushed me off cliffs. That's how I died. So they made me go back to my worst trauma in past lives. Christos does something fantastic, which is hypnosis. So he hypnotizes you to the point where you first created your neurotic problem, which is quite an amazing thing. That means if a medicine is not working, for instance, like he gives you homeopathy and it's just not working, or any medicine, he hypnotizes you to where you go to the place where, why is the cause of why that medicine doesn't work? Like, why are you allergic to cats, or why are you... And you go either to the past life, or you're hypnotized to the exact moment in this life where you created that issue.
Why do you think so many people are allergic to cats?
Well, I think quite a few people were mauled by lions and tigers.
Okay.
People were killed. Look, Buddha was, Christ was. They were all killed by lions and tigers. I think when we existed in a different time, when they were more jaguars, I think there was a lot of death. Cats are the feminine. It's a deep understanding of the feminine. All cats are feminine for me, even if they're male cats. The way that they take care of themselves, everything, it's the feminine. And so, it's like, why are women allergic to wheat? Wheat is completely feminine. It's part of the mysteries. It's quite important. And it's the goddess wheat, the chaff of wheat. And yet everybody is allergic. So it's too much of something. You understand? Maybe too much, of the distortion of the feminine in our time. Because and I love cats, and I'll sleep with cats and everything, but eventually I will start sneezing. I have to tell you. And then, I do homeopathy and everything, and then it goes away. And then I get used to the cat, and, some of it is genetic, really. A lot of people in my family have it, and it's passed down. So there are other things there. I do remember the cats at the temples in Egypt, and I had no problem. And I love Bast, and I love Sekhmet rituals. I don't know what people are saying. Sekhmet is the goddess of war. That's just the goddess of healing for me. So all of the things I read about is like, oh, that's such bullshit that they write. My experience of them directly is different. And I think that's important, that you have direct experience. That you get your ego out of the way enough, that your ego goes through the death, the surrender to the higher self. And that you allow the greater self to take over. That's the initiation, really. And then you surrender completely. I mean, there's many surrenderings, but you surrender. And in this way, you give yourself over to your higher self. One bird eats the fruit, the other one lovingly watches. And your ego takes second place. And and knows its place. And it doesn't control you anymore with like, crazy thoughts. And, but it always wants to, go for the crazy thought, do that. And you have to kind of say no. These are the limits. When you're facing your shadow, I went through hell facing my shadow. I had to meet a ruthless tyrant. It's because I had like a tyrannical, past life ego. And I had to meet somebody who was tyrannical towards me, and I had to find a strategy to leave them. Oh my God. Or they would have destroyed me. And, they knew magic. So I had to go through like a magical war. It was really life or death. And I made it. I was stronger than them. And I not only survived it, I really broke out. And I do miss them. So this is another bizarre thing. I miss my ruthless tyrant because it was such an intimate power struggle, the ultimate power struggle of my life. And I finally surrendered. And
so this was like a past life issue you had. And in this life, you're confronting the other side that you had been.
And somebody else has to play the role for me. Somebody had to be my ruthless tyrant in this life.
Oh, and it's a physical thing that you're reenacting.
It's a person. And they
wow.
Oh no, you can't leave me unless you pay me. I couldn't even leave. They confined you. That was terrible. They knew tracking, they knew magic, they knew how to confine me to a space where I couldn't move.
Wow.
I had to overcome them. And I did. I created a strategy to leave. I had to see my father. Thank God I got out. But it's like Scientology or any of these cults, like you can't get out. It's the same feeling.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. Oh my gosh.
Well, I've heard the stories of Scientology. Wow.
Scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had to do that. I had to meet somebody from a past life who I thought was a very exalted being and meet them and meet them as a human being this time. Even though I knew who they were in the past and how amazing they were. And that fine balance of, do I indulge them because I know they're so great? Or do I treat them as a human being and really just be there unconditionally for them? That was my big test. There's more, there's so many. I could go through all the different tests. I have them written down in journals. That's why you journal your life, so that you remember the tests and how you passed them. And all of that in the end is shadow work. I had a shadow because I'm a Cancer. So I had a big shadow of mothering, being mothered and smothered. So, and growing up, I had my nanny and my mother, both at odds with each other for my attention. And then came women. Gay men and women. I was surrounded by women and they were flocking to me and falling in love with me and wanting to seduce me and blah, 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 blah. And then wanting to be my teacher, wanting to be around me. Oh my God. And it became too much. So Dawn Eagle Woman, for instance, I needed a strategy to leave her because I loved her. Don't get me wrong. She was an amazing medicine woman. But after a while in seminars, I wasn't even speaking. She was doing all the speaking. It's like you just give in to the person and you give in to their need to communicate all the time. And you get lost. And finally I had to say, this isn't healthy for me. People came to see me, not Dawn Eagle Woman. I have to leave now. And I had to do a strategy to leave my best friend. And she furious at me. And I had to do it in such a way that she wouldn't kill me. Because she could with a glance or whatever. We were very close. And then it got bigger. I had a break from another woman who wanted to give me millions of dollars and all that kind of stuff, to buy me in a gilded cage. I went through that period where somebody tried to buy me. And, after a while, I made so many mistakes that, they didn't want me anymore, thank God. And then there was this guy who has been my stalker life after life. Can you imagine having a stalker who comes in any lives? Okay, oh my God. So he separated me from all these different women. He's another one. But he did it as a gift to me. To say, you should stay on your spiritual path. You should stay, and these people are tests for you, their deviations, and you don't have to go through it. So he would seduce them and they would leave every time. These are the tests. This is how you face your shadow, Lucia. I just want you to do it consciously. And usually with a curandera or a shaman, they will tell you, this is the test right now. They can feel it coming.
It helps, right? If you have somebody
Yeah.
guiding you that you trust too.
That's car accidents, and that's lots of other ways to do it. That's illnesses. This is how you face your shadow. This is when
I had my like 3 years of dream premonitions of aviation accidents, and it got to a point where I said, I don't want to see this anymore. I'm ready to just take myself out. It was awful. I hated it.
Well, you know what happened to us, right? That was on that flight. I was booked on the flight that went down. So
Yes.
So nuts.
Where did it go down? Which one was it?
it was the flight from Barcelona to Milan, and they went down in the Alps. It was a German pilot.
Oh, the German. Oh,
that's
yes.
right. Yes, that's right. Yes.
That was such an insane story.
Yeah.
And it just yanked me from the flight just 24 hours before. And it was very hard to change it.
Wow.
You know, and then you just have to trust. But at the same time, if I had died then, I would have felt like, okay, I achieved everything I was supposed to do. And that's how I feel even now on Earth. It's like, okay, I achieved everything I wanted to do. Now I have to do more.
Yeah.
So here, so let's do new things. You know, the sky's the limit. Whatever you want to do. You know, and don't compare yourself to other people. That's a big thing. Like they have more money, or, you know, a lot of my friends went to all the best schools and so they have much more money. They have so much, you know, big houses and children and I dedicated myself to this. So I don't have those things. I sacrificed a lot. And so you can't compare yourself, even though they judge you. This is another thing I went through, which is very fascinating, is when you go to somebody's house, you're in their domain. So they think they have power over you. So they can say whatever they want to you or do whatever they want because they have power over you. You're in their house. And that's why people let their guard down. They say all these terrible things to you. And you just look at them like, really? You're doing this to me here? And I just let them have it. So I went to a dinner party in New York. And I couldn't stand, really, actually, very few people in that dinner party. And they said something to me like, isn't that a fake name, your name, Foster Perry? Isn't that fake? Which is not true. That's actually my real name. And I explained to them where I got it from my father's teacher, which was an honor for me. Another one was, oh, where you live. That's such a fake place where you live. I mean, aren't you ashamed to live there?
Oh, my.
And we had to explain, like, no.
What's the need to, like, why? Like, I don't, is
Power
it something,
over you. Power.
is it something inside of them?
Yes. Like they can't stand the light. They can't stand anybody spiritual.
Exactly.
They are going to destroy you in front of everybody. And that has happened many dinners. So I said, that's it now. These nasty little spirits, nothing going for them, who have no power, are going to try to go after me in a dinner party. Good luck. You can turn all your friends against me, but I see what a fake you really are. Understand? And you know, a lot of my friends, those are their friends. I don't want to see them. They're not my friends. And they prove to me they're not my friends.
Of course.
I was at a dinner party once, really, another test. Like, I shouldn't have gone to this dinner party because a fox jumped in front of our car to warn me, don't go to this party. Camouflage.
Oh, my.
Camouflage, that's the fox. Hide. I still went to the stupid party. And I'm sitting there at dinner, and this man is screaming at me about how many times a day he has sex with his wife.
What?
He's sitting there. So he's putting her down. He's talking only as her as an object of sex. So I immediately say, okay, this marriage is not going to last. I'm thinking all this stuff. And finally, he won't stop. He's like blubbering all over me. He's drunk. It was terrible. So finally, you know, forget the fox. Forget the camouflage. Forget being nice. I let this man have it. I told him, you know, your marriage isn't going to last the year. Number two,
Did you say it in front of the wife?
In front of the whole dinner table because everybody heard me.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh.
You're going to have an operation in 24 hours to 48 hours. If you don't have this operation, you will die. And I told him what's wrong with the gallbladder, the whole thing. And this man's like a Tarzan. He's like a huge guy, Tarzan, you know, French. And he got up from the table and started actually like Tarzan, going like this, beating
God.
I'm totally healthy. There's nothing wrong with me. You know, you're just trying to scare me and put this inside of me. You know, that's what People like you do. There it comes out. People like you. And his wife came up to me, French, and she said, you make me scared. I'm afraid of you. You can see right through me. Of course I can see right through you. You only have one life. There's nothing going on here. We were terrible. Crystal's giant tin.
Oh, no.
Further. Don't treat Foster this way. He's very protective.
Yes.
Oh my God. So we left the party, and my car had no energy. So the battery died on the way home.
Oh, gosh.
They had drained all the energy.
Oh, no.
Waited like an hour for the tow truck. We had needed a tow truck. They couldn't get the car started. Okay. Anyway, that was quite a party. And the guy called me the next day, the French guy, and he said, listen, I'm about to go into surgery. You are correct. How did you see that? How is that possible? Sure enough, a year later, he called me again. My marriage ended.
Wow.
You should have been like, people like me see that stuff.
See, they don't have respect for seers. Or the she or any of these kind of people. They have no, we call that the satyrs, the people who are seers. How come you didn't, teach me or what? Because you're unteachable. I told him you're unteachable. I can't help you. Really, you're waking up too late, man. And I think that you're like involved in mafia and you're involved in drug dealing and all that stuff. And I knew it when I sat next to you at the table. All your money came from all these bizarre sources. No one knows how you're really making your money. So that's revelation. And that's why I don't go to dinner parties anymore. People invite me and I say, no, even if you really like me, no way.
Too much truth comes out.
Maybe a restaurant at your house. I won't go to your house. Yeah. And because this is the power struggle, and it brings up the shadow in people and their darkness. And they want to kill you, crucify you, shake it out of you, like, be like us. Why can't you be like us? Neurotic about our health. And they just accept it, like that's the way life is. And we look down on you because you don't have as much money as we do. That was a very big thing all my life. We look down on you because you don't have the money. And Foster, you came from money and you gave it all away. We look down on you. And I go through that with everybody from college, high school. I mean, it's incredible for me. And I couldn't really care less. I couldn't give two shits about it. They're like, oh, that's all there is. You only have materialism. You only have that. I have a pretty good life for myself. It's okay. I would like more, yeah. But that wasn't the main modus operandi of my life. It wasn't the purpose.
Yeah. And I think you going through all those situations goes to show how you work through all your shadows, right? Yeah. Because of course you're going to react in a way, and you gave him information that actually served him. You helped him in some way, right?
Yes.
But, the work that you did helped you deal with those situations in a better, like you said, the ego, it's going to touch your ego in some way, of course, but you're past that. You're like, this, I'm in the situation, but it's probably because I didn't listen to myself. Yeah.
Well, shadows can really trip you up, especially subconscious ones. Shadows that are quite unconscious to you, but everybody else sees them.
Yeah.
And you get into certain situations like where everybody's doing drugs, or everybody's like willing to have sex with you or whatever. And you have to look at everybody and say, yeah, I'm not feeling it. I think this temptation is not going to work for me.
Yeah.
I don't judge you. I don't say it's wrong that you want to have an orgy or whatever. I passed that point. You understand? Like maybe when I was 20, that was important.
Yeah.
20. It's not important right now. And you just say it like it is. And people look at you like, really? You don't want me? No. Thank you, though. It's quite impressive that you makes me feel good, But no. That's life. Because it comes at you all the time. And that's another thing, fame. Then I had my little 10 minutes of fame. And people were coming right and left, throwing themselves at me. And you have to say no. No. That's not why I have the fame. That's not why I will live. I don't want that. And you have to see if fame is going to destroy you, because everybody looks at you differently. Like now you're in that league.
I think fame is scary because then everyone forms an opinion and you somehow have to deal with the opinion that all these different people have of you.
And expectations. Oh, you better be better. The next book better be even better. You better have more people coming. You better have a bestseller. You better have a New York Times bestseller. Oh my God, the pressure. And
So much pressure.
I thought,
Yeah.
if it happens, it happens. It's not for me. You know, to live like this.
You live on your own terms.
Exactly. There was a time when I had absolutely no money, zero. I was in Santa Fe in a house and I was being tested. I had just built a beautiful house with a priest, an ex-Catholic priest who went native, who went Aboriginal. And we built this house together. It was so beautiful. And then I had no more money because I had spent it all on the house. And I went to Los Angeles and this woman said, come to Brazil. I have a lot of people for you. And so I flew to Brazil and that's how everything changed in my life. But I had to reach the bottom. And my guide said, don't worry, we'll take care of you. And I went to Brazil. I came back with $100,000.
Wow.
That's beautiful that you hit that rock bottom that really gave, if you didn't hit that, you wouldn't have gone to Brazil probably, and you wouldn't have had that experience.
Exactly. And then everything popped after that, everything. And then I learned about, how people cheat you out of money for doing readings and all that stuff that I could have even earned double that. And all the people that all of a sudden organized me because I was doing so well and blah, 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 blah. So I had to go through all the learning curve. And I had to accept the shamanic tradition of Brazil, candomblé, and I had to learn how to do it. And I had to honor, these ladies and Pai de Santos. And what do you do when a Pai de Santo falls in love with you? I had 2 Pai de Santos fall in
I noticed a love theme here.
He was channeling, a shoe, and the whole bed was full of cigar smoke. No, there were no cigars in the house. So it was really just the spirit and talking to me and channeling to me in the middle of the night. So it's quite a thing, Pai de Santos. They're afraid or whatever. But it was profound, the things that I learned. And you learn to accept people, whether they're a witch or whatever. Over my life, I've learned to accept quite a few different ways of thinking. And then to plummet the depths, to go into the demons and have them also interact with me and getting to know them by name and their sigils and calling them, I wasn't afraid anymore. And once you pass that, where you're not afraid of demons, you're not afraid of all these things, you can do any kind of exorcism and you don't need to anymore because you can actually just talk to the spirit. Then life changes. It gets sweet. It gets sweeter. And then one day, the world, the dull world that we see every day with a very limited senses changes for a shaman. And the world gets dim and the inner world, or the other world, I call it, the spiritual world, you see everything with its real color and aura. That's the breakthrough moment. That's a different world. And you're seeing the other world here. And there's no going back. You know it. There's no going back. You can't shut this down anymore. You see people's real motivations and you say, okay, I don't want to go there. And then comes other levels. Then you come into your soul, who you really are. And
When you start seeing that in people, though, is it the wrong thing to do? Let's say that you started noticing that in people and you decided to retrieve yourself.
I retreated.
Is it the wrong thing to do, though? Aren't we supposed to interact with each other here?
I do, but we're so far away from anything spiritual. So far away from even understanding the basics. So shut down with dogma. I don't know. There was no way in.
Yeah.
I learned to stay with my own kind, to stay within my tribe. You talk about the soul tribe.
Yeah.
I stay with my own tribe. And I get nurtured and I can grow and learn more with my own tribe. And they bring me lots of issues and problems and whatever, and that helps me to make it beautiful. That helps me to see the beauty in everything. Versus just always beating a dead horse, always trying to help the most difficult people who don't want help, who don't want to change, who don't want healing, and who have really closed themselves off.
Yeah.
and judged me, like immediately judged me. Like they always judge me. Like when I was a kid, they judged me. Same, like you can trace it in the same kind of person.
Yeah.
Judging me just like them. Okay, I don't need to answer your email.
I love that.
Block. And then you have those people who are always needy. They're always coming like victims.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe they do have a mental aberration, or maybe they are handicapped, definitely, mentally, emotionally, physically. It's okay. Sometimes you choose, do I want to interact with them or not? Do I want to help them or not? Because it's a lifelong helping. And unfortunately, I did do that with a few people, and they would just show up at my doorstep homeless. And they want to move in. And you say, no, you can't move in with me. I have a life here. I don't want you living here on these grounds. I'm not here to take care of everybody. As the great master, now you all have to stay with me on the farm.
No.
So Christos was great for me because he kind of was a gatekeeper and said, no, none of you are going to live with us.
He puts his boundaries. I love that. He knows. That's something I admire in him.
Because when you don't have boundaries, everybody tries to enter.
Yeah.
It's really not a game. And
We saw that a lot with our father. How they used him a lot. That I think that marked Lorena and I a lot as well.
And you have to say no, even though it hurts.
Yeah.
I actually told somebody in the middle of the night, you have to leave now. Don't ever come back. We're done.
Wow.
And I just felt invaded. I felt like,
That's not good.
Privacy. You coming in the middle. No. And what you demand of me? No.
Absolutely no.
And you have to do that with boyfriends. You have to do that with husbands. You have to do that with everybody. Like, I don't tolerate that in my space. Does that clear the past? Absolutely. The things you do not just for yourself, but for 7 generations. That is shamanism. Everything you say and do is going to affect 7 generations.
Wow.
After and before you.
Nice.
So it's a ripple in time.
That just goes to show how important it is, the work that we each individually do, because that can affect so much in the future, what's coming, the awakening, but also our ancestors, right?
Well, my brother thought, if I play Mozart all day to my son, he's going to be brilliant. He's like, really dumb. I'm so sorry. He's the opposite of that. It didn't work. It's not the Mozart. It's the way you live your life as an example.
Of course, yeah.
It's how you think and are you
philosophies, the action, the values.
You pass it all down.
Yeah.
So do you align with values? Do you align with your higher self? That's all values. Do you align with angels or demons or whatever, both, just to be able to help here the most effectively? And what do they teach you? What are the universal laws? And how do you control your mind? And blah, 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 everything I learned with the shamans. Like Christos started with his teaching. In the end, you pass it on. And I kind of like doing I have a whole school and I kind of give this away in videos, one after another, kind of repeating myself too many times, but I kind of hammer it home. This is how I would do it. This is how I would do a tattva. This is how I would do this. And I think that it gives more to me than even the people who watch them.
Yeah.
It's transforming because it's saying everything so clearly and matter of fact. This is what happens in your 60s. You just say it like it is.
That's good.
I'm
looking forward to that.
Then. I feel like I'm already 80 then.
And people can follow you. Like if they want to, they could follow you. Meaning they can follow your train of thought.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not like a sheep, but I mean train of thought. And that's rewarding. You know what I mean? Where I see a result. Because you do so much for humanity and then you see so little result. And that always made me sad in many lives. And in this one, when I do see a result, wow.
Yeah, it's so rewarding. It feels so good.
It means something's awakening, something's changing.
Yeah.
So everything, the ground underneath is shaking. So I live in California, there's earthquakes, the ground is shaking and new things are coming out of the ground all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That I like. So I don't know if I answered your questions about what is the technique to clear your past, which, I love this. There is a visualization. Once you learn a little bit about Egyptian, they had an absolutely amazing meditation to the mountaintop, where you go down into the earth like a shamanic journey, and you go through all the layers of yourself and your ancestors, and you get to the archetypal layer. And then you go on all the archetypes come with you, and you go on a procession inside of the crystal mountain, and you end up inside of your DNA that is full of light, and you go into it with Osiris, and you touch your own DNA, you touch your own light, you resurrect yourself.
That sounds beautiful.
And then you have to come back. And you can only do that in your mental body. So you have to physically come out of your body into your astral body. From your astral body, you have to come out of the astral body into your mental body. And the whole journey is how you get into all the different bodies. And then you travel into your final, the sooooo body, which is your spiritual body, and your hadit body, which is your shadow self. And you merge them, and you do that in the DNA. I wrote that all down, and the meditation, and how to do it, and everything, and how to travel in your different Egyptian bodies. And that's
amazing.
I believe everybody can do that. It's a wonderful visualization.
You did answer the questions, I feel. And Lucia, I think, nodded.
Yes,
as
yeah,
well.
no, definitely. I agree. There was much more than I could have imagined to be able to do with it.
And don't fear death. That's another thing with your ancestors. The last thought is so important. So you're the one who will overcome the fear of death, even though when it does come, it's crazy, scary, I tell you. And then slowly, if you wait and wait and wait, it becomes very peaceful.
Yeah.
It becomes letting go.
What was the last thing that Steve Jobs said? Did he say wow?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
It's so much more, You meet everybody you love and your animals and everything when you die.
We should do a whole episode on that, because we've talked about that before, but I'm very curious to see how your take on that.
I think most people go through orientation. They have to realize they're dead, and then they have to process.
Yeah.
You have to be taken by your ancestors. But, sometimes you prepare your death, meaning I've already made a house on the other side where I'm going to go.
Oh.
And when I leave here, I just actually go to that other house.
I've actually heard of that before. Yeah. Yeah.
And people will visit me there, and then we'll talk about the life and the review and everything. It can be so different if you plan it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you plan here for the afterlife, quite amazing. I think the most important thing for me is to be practical in this life, because I don't want anybody else to do the ritual for me. I don't want anybody else to do the work for me. I want to do the work. I want to be responsible. And that, I believe, is what I came to do, to be practical. Everything in magic has to be practical. Shamanism has to be super practical. There was a day when I was teaching the medicine wheel, and I was in Italy, and for a moment, a magpie came and went right. I had the car door open. I was filling gas, and a magpie jumped into my car and looked at me.
Mm-hmm.
Magpies are shaman birds. And it was just staring at me. And I looked around, and I realized, I'm going into an alternative reality now.
Hmm.
And I wasn't alone. There were two other women with me. And this bus came full of nuns. And they were all like 25, 24 years old, all gorgeous. And they all came out in these like white nun outfits out of the bus, smiling and staring. And I just looked at a rainbow formed over the road, a rainbow in the distance, and other rainbows everywhere. And they had just, they got snacks at the gas station. And I had already finished gas. And they were coming towards the car and looking at these nuns, looking at all the rainbows. Are we in an alternative reality?
Oh my gosh.
We all looked at each other like, yeah, let's go drive. And we just drove. And we drove through the rainbows. And this was the blessing before the medicine wheels, teaching people the medicine, which is a great blessing. How to combine all the worlds.
Yeah.
Those are the great moments. Those are the moments I always remember.
Sounds magical.
And they happen, and you never know when they're going to happen. And they're a synchronous moment when everything comes together because you're doing something you love, which for me was the medicine wheels, to bring them back. A lot of other things happened. We were talking about bilocation. All of a sudden, the car bilocated. That happened to me once.
Oh my.
So we were on the opposite side of the road, far away. We were far away from where we were. So that we absolutely had to know we bilocated. The whole car, us. The shaman that I worked with loved, and lots of people wrote books about him, but he used to do things where he would, move the car he was driving, and he would go behind a truck, but he was in the opposite lane and he had to get in and there was no room. And I just closed my eyes like, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die. And always we were in front of the truck. How did he do it? He didn't speed up. You couldn't. There were other cars. How did he do it? Just amazing things that they did.
That kind of reminds me of the story of Uri Geller.
Yes.
Where he was in the city and then he woke up at his friend's house, or he went through the window of his friend's house. I don't know if it was in Yorktown or I forgot where.
That is what happened to us. We were in the car listening to the tape recording of Uri Geller bilocated.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Ben Bentoff, the physicist, and Puharich, who had done the experiment with him and I was in the car listening to that tape because my friend had the tape. She was the wife of the scientist.
Wow.
She said, I want you to listen to this. And she did it in the car and we bilocated.
Wow.
That's insane.
Her name was Bentoff. Myrtella Bentoff was the one time in my whole life I bilocated. And Christos bilocated once when he was teaching a seminar in Italy. He came outside the seminar at the same time to talk to a guy while he was still teaching inside. So you could actually see him outside talking to the guy and inside.
Oh my gosh.
That's quite a trip. And that guy died a year later. So it was important that he talked.
Oh man.
All this stuff, we don't know why these things happen, but they happen.
Yeah.
Ben had a guru, Neem Karoli Baba, and when he died, he had led one life with his family and his children, and he had another life as a guru, and both didn't know about each other. The ashram did not know that he had a personal life, and he lived the personal life every day with his family. So he had a normal life, and then he had a spiritual guru life. And when he died, the body was one. So when he died, the wife came to the funeral, but so did all the people, and that's the first time they met. And realized,
wow.
Oh my God, he had been in two different bodies all his life.
That's pretty cool.
Wow.
I mean, wow.
And then you have the Buddha. When the Buddha comes as Maitreya, it comes in 8 different bodies. So like one is the mind, one is this. That's what they always say. But it's actually 8 different incarnations. 4 women, 4 men.
Mm-hmm.
And, only one survives. That's how hard it is to live here. To be a spiritual teacher. I mean, only one survives. Holy shit.
And we're still alive.
We're still here.
And women are ascending. And women are coming into powers they can't imagine. And like my mother, you meet that incredible, how can I say it, the deer with the giant horns. And you know that when Princess Diana died, that same deer appeared. So we know these may be witches, and these may be like women who are part of the green world. And maybe it's a great curandera. Usually the animal of a curandera will come and visit you after they die. It's an owl or it's they all have their familiars that they like to shapeshift into. The real curanderas can shapeshift.
I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
I love that witches used to suckle, toads on their breasts. They used to really? Yeah. And the toads used to they formed a symbiotic bond. So witches then could turn into toads.
That's why.
They were walking around like frogs. And that's why in Europe they murdered all the frogs. That's why
Did they? I didn't know that.
As many as they could get because they believed they were witches.
Oh,
The craziness of it all.
wow. I mean, just, yeah.
Then you destroy the echo balance.
Yeah.
When in fact, they were forming a great bond.
Was it that they were so fearful of them because of the things they were able to do?
Nephilim.
Their power.
And I think that's also lesser gods are afraid of the real power of human beings, so they suppress the whole world. And I think we're breaking out of that. We're waking up. We're reading the old books. We're breaking out. You know, and I think that magic, everything is changing right now. And we don't know where it's changing, but we know it has to do with time travel. That's what Christos is teaching this week. He's teaching Friday about time and the nature of time and how to, all the different dimensions, how to get out of time.
Well, definitely share. I'll ask you for all your links. We can share that on our podcast show notes. But yeah, because I know you guys teach and all that. And I think you, like you said, you're pouring all your energy into that. And I think that's fascinating.
That anybody can download. You don't have to go to school.
Exactly.
I love that line, death has no dominion. I used to say that all the time to people, the death is not real. We always live. Please don't believe in all that stuff. It's just transitions.
Yeah.
And so, you know, ancestors, everybody, I kind of tell them about all the transitions of life. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. You're only fearing your own death. Once you get over that fear, you know,
You can live.
Fear to go crazy, or the fear to be jumping off a cliff, or whatever it was, you have to face one fear at least and get all of them. You have to face one addiction, you know, whatever it is that wants to control you, whether it's watching porn or whatever your addiction is, you know, or eating too much or whatever. You have to catch yourself and use your willpower and say no. And when the Christians, you know, said, "Oh no, you shouldn't have sex," and you should dry up, because they thought without sex, then you have more spiritual power. That's not true. Orgasm creates akasha, creates connection to divinity. So delaying it, and controlling your own orgasm is quite a powerful deed, and it's the essence of sex magic.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's something, maybe we can do a whole episode on that, because of that.
We talked about it in an episode before from like a manifesting place using the energy, but it was we briefly talked about it.
We're going to have you on and talk about that.
Shouldn't women have pleasure when that's one of their great rituals?
Yeah.
I meet so many young men now who are so afraid of pleasure. They're so afraid to, you know, get it wrong and do the things they did in past lives, and you try to just get them to a moment of pleasure. Just to have a breakthrough, just to say, okay, you're not going to be an addict, you're not going to be a heroin addict, you're not going to die, you're not in the Vietnam War, all that stuff. You can finally wake up here and now and be here. That's the moment of pleasure, and not hate yourself. Like your body for once. And there's nothing wrong with having kids and whatever. A lot of people have kids, like I lost my child before, or I lost my dad, or I lost somebody and I wanted them back. There's nothing wrong with sacrificing for that. Or I want to shape this person because I love them. These are the mysteries, right?
Yeah.
I'm totally involved in mysteries. And of course, plants, they speak. They have their own frequencies. So, you know, you'll understand it. You'll feel it. You know, it's better just to feel it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Like,
we've been on for a while.
We went way deeper than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, I never live in the past. That's finished for me.
Yeah.
Whatever's coming, this is the future. We're creating it now.
Amen.
This is our children. This is what's coming. We know it's not the end of the world and defeated. It's the end of one world. It's the apocalypse for the Christians, for sure, and Muslims and lots of people. It's kind of the end for Jews, everybody. But for us, I don't know. I think it's the great balance. I think we'll face our deepest shadow, the giants, you know, our own, whatever's giant for us.
Yeah.
That we think is going to overwhelm us. And I think this war of polarity, whatever, I think we transcend it. We win. I think it's not a war. I think it's a battle of ideologies.
Yeah.
And we just hope this very caring spiritual ideology, this kindness towards each other wins.
I hope so.
This awakening wins. Because spirituality is over. We're only in awakening now.
Yeah.
God knows, whatever was going to happen in the future, they sped it up. Something had to change.
They sped it up. You mean we're like going through it sooner? You mean, is that what you meant? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like right in our face, the future. We know it now. We know like, this could be dystopic. This could be real bad, or it could really flip.
Yeah.
And it flips because we do the hard work to make it flip. Never give up. That's the idea. You just don't ever give up. You give your best here.
That's a good message.
For a woman, I think it's to blossom. I think when a woman blossoms, even with her kids, with everything, she just blossoms from within. I don't know. It's to know her own life. Right? It's when you really are aligned and you're doing your work. And then you come back, and ground yourself.
Always.
Okay. It's that wonderful balance. Okay. I'm never more happy than when I'm helping somebody in a session, though. I love that one moment.
Yeah.
When I am in awe before it actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
Then it happens and like, okay, that was actually much better than I imagined it would be. It went better.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether they stay with it, because you have to be consistent. You have to stay with your readings. You have to really grow out of them. Even if they don't grow, it doesn't matter to me. For me, it was enough. It was a timeless moment when 1 hour felt like 5 minutes. Then I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the best.
Totally.
It goes really quickly. For me, the good feeling comes when I finish a call and I like, wow, like I was able to help someone today. I did something today.
And you bend time.
Yeah.
So comfortable. You bend it time.
Yeah.
I love all those things. I love all the beauty of this world too. The pearls and the gems and everything. I'm in my 60s now. None of that matters to me. But when I see it, I appreciate it. I don't have to own it or possess it or anything.
Just admire it.
Admire it. I love it. And a lot of times I want to insulate myself in a beautiful home and kind of be on my retreat. And then I kind of stop and say, okay, let's find a balance here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can have a home, but I also like this.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all coming to in COVID. What is my real work? What's the balance? How much do I want to go to a job and how much do I want to do it from home?
Yep.
You can do a lot from home.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot.
You have so much. But you have to have good food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I was a little freaked out by the greed because after COVID, you can't get things as easily. You can't get all the food you want in a grocery store, so they charge you more for the same food. And here in US, some restaurants doubled their prices.
Really?
Some grocery stores doubled their prices.
Prices went up here too, for sure.
Yeah. Here, I saw it here too.
It's a kind of greed, though. And I understand the supply and demand, and they couldn't get the shipping, but they're using that as an excuse to milk people for more money.
Yeah.
And we have to be kind of careful of that. So when you see it, you're like, ooh, this burger costs $25 now. It was like nothing before. It was expensive before, and now it's really expensive. And this fish really costs a lot. And you think, no, something's not right here.
Yeah.
We can do it, and it's fine. But, and I'm very grateful for that. But a lot of people just go insane. They just can't keep up. Poverty is something else, some interior state that's very different. It's when you don't see things as they really are, when you really give up that way.
Yeah.
It's that moment. So I think of abundance, but I see the poverty all around me. Homeless. I mean, we're in California. You can't imagine.
I heard it got really bad, actually. Yeah.
Everywhere. And you just stop and you just, you give when you really feel like somebody needs it. But I have to say, this is a huge change of society on every level.
Yeah.
They have to find solutions for all of this. But again, everybody lives in their own world now. That's another thing that's happening. Everybody's so individualized, so different. You live in your own worlds. So to contact spirits in another world, well, it's kind of amazing because that we can't share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot to be grateful for. So when I see these people, I'm like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful every day. And at curandera, in the end, keeps themselves young. You rejuvenate.
Sounds like I'm heading toward. I'm going to do that route then.
Me too.
It's enough now, I guess.
Yeah.
You guys.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking the time to come on here and just talk to us, and talk to our audience. They really appreciate it. We always get some beautiful comments and messages. And
I love my ancestors. I really do. I think of them often. I was in the middle of a ritual, and in the ritual, all of a sudden, I just thought about my ancestors, and they were coming because they want to be there when you're doing a ritual. And there was my father's mother, and then her mother, and then the other mother, and then another mother, and then another mother, and then my father's father, his father, the father beyond that. There were a lot of ancestors. And when I saw them, I was crying in the ritual. It was too much emotion to feel them all.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You couldn't look away. You just, they were doing the ritual. It was still going, and I was with them, and they were just wanting to be there and say, we're here. You're not alone. You're not separate. You're not alone. You're never. And then, of course, the ritual ended.
That's beautiful.
They thought I was just moved by the ritual, but I was really just moved by my ancestors.
Because they were there, yeah. You're feeling them.
It's when you see your dead father in his suit, and you see your dead mother, you just start crying. It's too much.
Yeah.
Because you know that one day they're not going to have that form anymore. One day they're going to, go back to light, and if they create another incarnation or another form, more their essence. So they're not going to have that body or that look anymore.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the last time. And then I let them all go. And I feel them still connected. But I think the bonds we make are even more important, how we support each other.
Yeah.
That's
thank you. Well, thank you for supporting us.
Yes.
And we support you. Yeah. It means so much to us.
Weaving the elements together.
Yes. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll talk again soon. Whatever you want to talk about.
We hope you all enjoyed that episode with Foster Perry. Thank you, Foster, for coming on, for taking the time to speak to everybody, and for sharing so much information, so many stories, especially going into all the ancestral healing and shadow work information. I think that's going to really serve so many of us. So all of the links for Foster and for all the courses that he does and that Christos does as well are all on the show notes. So make sure you check those out and check, maybe even message them and say that you listen to them here on the podcast. And we will be back next week with a new episode. So make sure you're subscribed and share this episode with anybody you know that might enjoy this information or might get something out of this. We love you guys, and we hope to chat with you soon. Bye.